Chapter 889. Han Sho might not be able to deal with Tyre, Log, and Wasis at the same time, but if it was Wasis alone, Han Sho was still very confident. The fringe was a place where strength determined everything. Sometimes, no amount of nonsense was better than a single strike. In Han Sho's opinion, Wasis was the weakest among the three. Moreover, he was also the most annoying one. Han Sho could prove his determination by defeating Wasis. Wasis did not expect that Han Sho would actually challenge him. Under Han Sho's aggressive gaze, Wasis became somewhat uncertain. He had never thought of facing Han Sho alone, which was why he spoke so harshly. He had already made up his mind to join forces with Tyre and Log to deal with Han Sho. He believed that if the three of them joined forces, no matter how strong Han Sho was, he would not be able to escape alive. However, a one-on-one battle was not what Wasis wanted. Tyre, Log, and Wasis did not have a deep friendship. On the contrary, the three of them had always been secretly fighting against each other. Tyre was very surprised to see that Han Sho had declared his intention to challenge Wasis before he could even finish his sentence. He stared at Han Sho for a second before he burst into laughter and said, "Brother, you're really heroic. Haha, no wonder you've made a name for yourself in the fringe so quickly." He did not express any opinion on the matter between Wasis and Han Sho, nor did he intend to mediate. Log looked at the hesitant Wasis with a fake smile and teased, "Hee, don't tell me you're afraid of him?" Wasis was infuriated. He immediately understood what Tyre and Log were thinking. Tyre and Log were not too sure of Han Sho's true strength. Back in the Pandemonium, the battle between Han Sho and Salus was too short. It ended in just one move. Furthermore, Salus had fought Asura for a long time. They could not be sure of Han Sho's true strength from that battle. It was for this reason that Log and Wasis did not dare to act rashly and left the Pandemonium without a second thought. After the battle, even though Little Skull Han Hao was running amok in the fringe, the three sovereigns, who were not sure of Han Sho's true strength, did not take the initiative to provoke Han Sho. Even when Han Hao looted the goods from Tanai's shops, the three sovereigns secretly tolerated him. The three sovereigns were composed people. They would not act rashly before they were sure of Han Sho's true strength. The three secretly discussed for a while and came to an agreement. Then, they invited Han Sho over for a discussion. They planned to kill Han Sho at the dormant volcano if they could not come to an agreement. However, when Han Sho challenged Wasis, Tyre and Log suddenly felt that it would be more advantageous for them to have someone take the lead and figure out Han Sho's true strength. If Han Sho displayed great strength and they were not confident that the three of them could defeat Han Sho, Tyre and Log could change their minds at the last minute and disassociate themselves from this matter to avoid becoming enemies with Han Sho. If Han Sho's strength was not as terrifying as they thought, they could disregard their identities and join forces with Wasis to kill Han Sho. Tyre and Log thought about it, and immediately realized that it would be more advantageous for them if Wasis and Han Sho fought first. Therefore, one of them laughed it off and remained silent, while the other even spoke provocatively. They obviously wanted to see Wasis and Han Sho fight first. Wasis cursed himself for being too impulsive. At the same time, he cursed Tyre and Log for being shameless. Han Sho was sneering aggressively in front of him. This put him in a difficult position, and he did not know how to deal with it. If he agreed, it would be exactly what Tyre and Log wanted. If he didn't agree, others would think that he was really afraid of that kid, which would further boost the kid's morale. Wasis was in a dilemma. Han Sho looked at Wasis with a sneer. He had accurately grasped the thoughts of Tyre and Log. Seeing that Wasis was hesitating, Han Sho spoke again. "You and I have no enmity between us. The battle between us will not end until one of us dies like Salus. It's just a spar. You won't have any problems, right?" Han Sho was afraid that Wasis would not agree. He was also afraid that Wasis would go all out and fight to the death with him right from the start. As Tyre and Log, who harbored malicious intentions, were next to him, he did not want to fight to the death with Wasis. He only needed to prove his strength and determination through Wasis. Wasis, this is not like you. You see, Brian has already said so. What are you still worried about? Could it be that you really don't dare to fight? Hee hee. Logue looked at Wasis with a smile. He had a joking attitude, but his words were not pleasant to hear. At this point, Wasis knew that he could not shirk the responsibility. He cursed Tyre and Logue's 18 generations of ancestors in his heart. Wasis nodded with a cold face and said, "Let's fight then. I don't believe that you really have the strength to defeat Salus. In my opinion, the last time was just a fluke." Seeing that Wasis had agreed, Han Shaw was overjoyed. Compared to Tyre and Logue, Wasis's state of mind and strength were slightly inferior. He was the most suitable target. Without further ado, Han Shaw flicked all 10 of his fingers, and the demonic blades burst out. At a glance, the 10 fingernails were as sharp as razor blades, glinting with a cold light. After entering the Skybreak realm, all of the demonic arts Han Shaw cultivated and had been enhanced to varying degrees. With the new demonic yuan, the demonic blades formed were even stronger and sharper than ordinary demonic weapons. Because they were connected to his fingers, they could be retracted and retracted at will, allowing him to bring out the greatest power in close combat. Wasis cultivated in the power of water. Because he had been staying on Glacial Peak for a long time, he must have deeply understood the true essence of the other aspect of the power of water, ice. After the power of water evolved into the power of ice, it was outstanding in both defensive and offensive power. In close combat, he could bring out the greatest extent of his strength. Han Sho brandished the demonic blades, obviously intending to fight Wasis in close combat. Just this fact alone was enough to prove that Han Sho was brimming with confidence. He was not afraid of his opponent's strength. However, Wasis was not grateful for Han Sho's actions. He felt that Han Sho was provoking him by choosing to fight him in close combat. This made Wasis fly into a rage. He yelled, "Brat, you're asking for it!" As he spoke, a layer of solid ice covered Wasis. Under the sunlight, Wasis looked like a huge diamond, sparkling with a beautiful luster. The layer of solid ice covered Wasis's entire body. Strangely, it did not affect Wasis's mobility. He could move his hands easily and naturally, unaffected by the ice at all. The solid ice that covered most of Wasis's body made use of the toughness of ice. However, his 4 limbs were deeply affected by the gentleness of the water element. Wasis was indeed worthy of his reputation as an expert who cultivated the energy of water to the overgod realm. His understanding of the 2 elements of the energy of water had reached a very profound level. Seeing that Wasis was ready for battle, Han Sho knew that he had achieved his goal. He did not waste any more words with Wasis. A close-range fighter must have the awareness of close-range combat. Abandoning all the complicated and flashy movements and long-range attacks, Han Sho stabbed at Wasis as fast as he could. The demonic blades were as cold as blades. When the demonic yuan was fully condensed in the blades, the demonic blades forged from fingernails became 10 terrifying weapons. Clang! The first crisp sound came from Wasis's body. It was the sound of Han Sho's left middle finger coming into contact with the solid ice on Wasis's chest. Wasis did not expect Han Sho to move so quickly and so effectively. All he saw was a dazzling flash of light. In the next moment, Han Sho was right in front of him. The 10 sharp blades enlarged in front of his eyes. Just as he was about to intercept Han Sho, he helplessly discovered that his chest had already been hit. Han Sho was faster than him. This was Wasis's conclusion. Wasis indeed had a profound understanding of the profound energy of ice. Although the sharp demonic blades struck Wasis first, they did not immediately break through the layer of solid ice that Wasis had put up. They only left a few centimeters long cut on Wasis's body. Although Wasis was a beat slower, the attack landed on Han Sho's body as soon as Han Sho got close to him. The 2 ice swords in Wasis's hands pierced towards Han Sho's chest. Clang! Clang! An enormous repulsive force exploded from Han Sho's chest. Wasis was instantly repelled. Tyre, Logue, and Asura, who were watching from the side, widened their eyes. They cried out in disbelief. They could clearly see that Han Sho did not use any defensive boundaries on his body. Han Sho was only wearing a thin black warrior's robe. He did not have any divine armor on him. In other words, when Wasiza's attack landed on Han Sho's chest, it was a solid attack on Han Sho's body. Gods who cultivated in the 12 fundamental edicts could be found in every corner of Elysium. Some of them had incredibly powerful divine bodies, but none of them had ever seen someone who could block an attack with their bare body without the aid of any divine armor, boundaries, or defensive measures. Tyre and Logue were both shocked. They were certain that if they had blocked Wasiza's attack with their bare bodies without any defensive measures, not only would they have been injured, but they would have been gravely injured. They had never heard of anyone on Elysium with such a powerful body. Not even an overgod with the quintessence would be able to withstand such an attack without using any means of defense. Not even an overgod with the quintessence would be able to do that. Tyre and Logue looked at Han Sho with complicated expressions. They were getting more and more amazed. Chapter 890. While Tyre and Logue's imagination was running wild, the battle between Han Sho and Wasis was in full swing. Han Sho and Wasis, who were entangled in close combat, turned into two blurry phantoms. The sound of metal clashing could be heard. Wasis had covered his entire body in ice. He condensed the energy of ice into swords and stabbed at Han Sho. However, the swords were repelled by Han Sho's invincible omen body and could not really hurt Han Sho. Han Sho's demonic blades bombarded Wasi's body, but they only left white scratches. The scratches were only a few inches deep and could not penetrate Wasi's ice defense to inflict serious damage on Wasi's body. Both Han Sho and Wasis knew that nothing in this world was absolutely solid. Han Sho's invincible omen body and Wasi's ice defense needed the support of demonic yuan and divine energy. Every time they were attacked, a portion of their demonic yuan and divine energy would be consumed. Once either of them exhausted their strength, their defenses would naturally be torn apart. At that time, the seemingly incomparably sturdy defense would become extremely vulnerable. This was actually a battle of attrition. It was a battle of strength. Naturally, Han Sho would not be willing to exhaust his energy on Wasis. Tyre and Logue were watching from the side. If he were to exhaust too much of his energy in the battle against Wasis, those two might take the opportunity to gang up on him and gang up on Wasis. Although Asura was also present, Han Sho did not expect much from him. He did not believe that Asura would help him defend against Tyre and Logue. Therefore, Han Sho had no choice but to be on guard. While he was exhausting Wasi's energy, Han Sho decided to use another method of attack against Wasis. Han Sho consciousness suddenly formed an invisible wave that locked onto Wasis and charged at Wasis' divine soul. Wasis, who was defending against Han Sho attack with all his might, suddenly felt a stabbing pain in his mind. He sensed a sharp soul energy penetrating his mind and launching a terrifying attack on his divine soul. Wazer panicked in the face of the sudden soul attack. His eyes were filled with fear. Of the 12 fundamental forces, the 3 that were most adept at soul attacks were the energies of life, death, and destiny. Gods cultivating in the energy of water were at a disadvantage in this aspect. Han Sho's soul attacks were profound and unfathomable. They didn't belong to the 3 fundamental forces at all. After Han Sho consciousness attack penetrated Wasi's mind, it transformed into a dense net and wrapped around Wasi's divine soul. That net made of thousands of strands of consciousness gradually tightened. Wasi's divine soul felt an unbearable pain as though it was being poked by a needle. Demonic arts were not only outstanding in the forging of the physical body, but also in the use of consciousness. Although Wasi's physical defense was extraordinary, Han Sho's consciousness attack only targeted Wasi's soul. Wasis, who did not have much attainment in this aspect, was immediately at a disadvantage. The physical defense and attack were greatly affected by the divine soul. Once the divine soul became flustered, it would immediately be reflected in one's actions. When Han Sho's consciousness attack was launched, Wasis was immediately caught in a difficult situation. His movements became somewhat flustered, and his eyes were no longer as confident as before. Rog's expression changed. As a cultivator of the energy of death, he had great attainment in the use of soul power. When Han Shuo's consciousness attack penetrated Wasi's mind, he was the first to feel it. Rog carefully sensed with his divine soul and suddenly realized that he had no idea which element Han Shuo's consciousness power came from. Han Shuo's consciousness power, which was scattered into thousands of strands like a spider's web, was something Rog had never seen or imagined. This filled his heart with fear, and he looked at Han Shuo with deep apprehension. "It's a soul attack!" Under Tyre's pleading gaze, Rog explained in a low voice. "He has great attainment in soul attacks, and his use of soul power is very mysterious. If he messes with Wasis's divine soul, it will directly affect his strength." Tyre was surprised, and his eyes flickered. He exchanged a look with Rog, and no one knew what he was thinking. With the help of the consciousness attack, Han Shuo had gained the upper hand in the battle against Wasis. The thick layer of ice on Wasi's body seemed to have begun to crack, as if it would shatter at any time. If this situation continued, it would not take long for Wasis to be unable to resist under Han Shuo's indiscriminate bombardment. However, at this moment, Han Shuo suddenly withdrew. Not only did he give up the physical attack against Wasis, but he also withdrew the consciousness power that had forcibly broken into Wasi's mind. He no longer stared at Wasis and pestered him. Wasis, who was dealing with an extremely difficult situation, became more and more frightened. He had already prepared himself to be seriously injured by Han Shuo. Suddenly, he felt that his divine soul had loosened, and his whole body was suddenly freed. With a chuckle on his face, Han Shuo and Wasis distanced themselves from each other. He said indifferently, "I don't think there's any need to continue. Wasis's strength is indeed extraordinary. We don't have any deep hatred. It's enough that we tried." Before the battle, Han Shuo's attitude was not friendly, but now that he had completely gained the upper hand, he became modest and polite. Wasis first examined his body and divine soul. After making sure that Han Shuo did not do anything behind his back, he looked at Han Shuo with a complicated look and said, "I don't need you to save me any face. I admit that I'm not as good as you." Han Shuo was stunned. He suddenly felt that this annoying Wasis was perhaps the easiest to get along with among Asura, Log, and Tyre. At least this guy was not a schemer. Just the fact that Wasis dared to admit defeat had left a favorable impression on Han Shuo. There are too many variables in a battle. It is never certain who will win or lose. There are too many variables in a battle. Perhaps a small detail can change the outcome of the battle. This battle can only be considered a draw. You have not lost. Han Shuo put on a smile and said in a gentle manner. Wasis found Han Shuo's words rather strange. He did not understand Han Shuo's thoughts. He looked at Han Shuo suspiciously, as though trying to figure out what Han Shuo was thinking. In the fringe, every sovereign wanted to prove that they were stronger than others at all costs. That way, the sovereigns from the 12 dominions would seek refuge with them. That way, the sovereigns would gain more and more power. Back in the Pandemonium, when Asura saw that Salus had exhausted a lot of his divine energy, he immediately provoked Salus to attack him. He wanted to defeat Salus to prove that he was stronger. He and Log came to the Pandemonium with the same goal in mind. However, Han Shuo had clearly suppressed him in every aspect. Not only did he not mock or ridicule him, he even calmly said that it was a draw. This puzzled Wasis. Wasis looked deeply at Han Shuo. He did not see any disdain or ridicule in Han Shuo's eyes. This made him even more puzzled. "Oh? Isn't it over a little too fast?" Log suddenly said smilingly. "The winner hasn't been decided yet." Wasis was infuriated. He shot a cold glance at Log and said, "I believe that Brian has the strength to replace Salus in the Omphalos. If you think that he is not qualified, you can try." Log stared blankly. He did not expect that Wasis would speak up for Han Shuo. He looked at Wasis strangely. He knew that Wasis must be angry at him and Tyre for letting him take the lead. Logue chuckled and said, "There's no need for me. Brian has just fought with you. It's not fair for me to fight him now. Let's talk about it in the future." Hee, since when did you become such a stickler for rules? Wasis sneered. He knew that Logue loved to do such things. There could only be one reason why Logue did not attack Han Shu immediately. He was not confident that he could defeat Han Shu. Logue did not feel embarrassed at all. He looked at Tyre and asked, "What do you think about this matter?" Tyre couldn't figure out what Wasis was thinking. If Wasis was not willing to fight Han Shu with them, Tyre and Logue would not have absolute confidence in defeating Han Shu. Moreover, there was also the scheming Asura beside them. Tyre knew that Han Shu must have seen through their scheme. That was why Han Shu retreated when he had the absolute upper hand. Han Shu then made use of Wazir's resentment towards them and took the initiative to express his goodwill, causing Wazir to hesitate. That was how Han Shu broke the alliance between the three of them. This youngster is not easy to deal with. Tyre inwardly made a judgment about Han Shu. With the addition of Wasis, Tyre felt that it was no longer appropriate to stick to the original plan. After thinking for a moment, Tyre came up with another plan. He laughed heartily and said, "Heroes indeed come from youngsters. Brother Han Shu has proven his strength in the battle just now. Logically speaking, we shouldn't say anything, but oh? Is there a problem?" Han Shu bunched his brows and asked in a deep voice. Tyre forced a smile and nodded. He said helplessly, "But Salus is not dead. He is just temporarily hiding to recover. If we allow you to enter the Omphalos, things will be difficult to deal with once Salus returns." Tyre shook his head and sighed. "Unless you kill Salus. That way, he will no longer be a threat, and we will have nothing to say. You don't have to worry about that. If Salus really returns to the Omphalos, I will be the first person he will find trouble with. You don't have to do anything. I will deal with Salus myself. If I die, my belongings will belong to Salus. You will have nothing to do with it. What's so troublesome about that?" Of course, Han Shu would not be fooled by Tyre's excuse. He had thought about it long ago and answered without hesitation. "That's right. The person Salus hates the most is Brian. If he really returns, the first thing he will do is to seek revenge on Brian. At that time, whoever wins will take over the 10 sovereign shops and continue to be the new owner of the Omphalos." Asura put on a faint smile and said, "But we don't know when Salus will return. Before that, I don't think it's inappropriate for Brian to enter the Omphalos." Tyre knew that Asura and Han Shu were on the same side. He nodded and did not say anything. He glanced at Wasis and asked, "What do you think?" Tyre couldn't figure out what was on Wasis's mind. He needed to figure out Wasis's thoughts from Wasis's answer, and then decide if they should take the risk. Wasis was rather hesitant. He took a deep look at Han Shu and thought about what he should do. He knew that Tyre and Logue wouldn't want Han Shu to enter the Omphalos. Now, it all depended on Han Shu's attitude. As long as Han Shu agreed, his, Logue's, and Tyre's opinions would be much more powerful than Asura's. However, with Tyre and Logue's schemes, Wasis was filled with anger towards them. He was thinking about how he should retaliate against them. Wasis looked at the smiling Han Shu and hesitated for a moment. He suddenly felt that Han Shu seemed to be more magnanimous than the other two. For some reason, Wasis nodded and said, "I think Asura has a point." Tyre's expression changed slightly upon hearing those words. He nodded at Wasis and said, "Since Wasis and Asura have agreed, this matter will be easy to handle." "Right, Brian, I will have a good talk with the owners of those shops." "Oh, thank you." Han Shu put on a smile and nodded at Wasis, expressing his gratitude with his eyes. "But before you enter the Omphalos, I hope that you can do something for the Fringe. This concerns the rights and interests of all the sovereigns of Tanai." It seemed that Tyre had no intention of letting Han Shu enter the Omphalos without a hitch. He raised another question. Under Han Shu's gaze, Tyre put on an indignant face and said, The God Hunter Alliance has been trying to make the Amphilos their base. Recently, the God Hunter Alliance has been getting more and more arrogant. Many experts from the 12 dominions who came to the Fringe were absorbed by the God Hunter Alliance before they could even reach the Fringe. The number of true experts coming to the Amphilos has been decreasing. Brian, I know that Han Hao has a close relationship with you. He is now in control of the largest God Hunter faction in the Fringe. I have also heard that Han Hao is also connected to the God Hunter Alliance. I hope that you understand that if the God Hunter Alliance really makes the Fringe their base, they will only destroy the Fringe. Although the Fringe has always been a mess, we have never stirred up trouble in the 12 dominions. The God Hunter Alliance, on the other hand, is different. They have caused public indignation in the 12 dominions. All the major family clans in the 12 dominions are hunting down God Hunters. If they really treat the Fringe as a stronghold of the God Hunter Alliance, the Fringe will be doomed. What do you mean? Han Sho felt a headache coming on. Tyre's question was not without reason. If the Fringe were to become the God Hunter Alliance's base, the 12 dominions would definitely send their divine guards to destroy the Fringe. Either we force Han Hao to leave the God Hunter Alliance, or we force him to leave the Fringe with the God Hunters who are growing in power. Otherwise, sooner or later, he will bring calamity upon the Fringe, Tyre said. Chapter 891. The relationship between Han Shu and Little Skull Han Hao was not something an ordinary person could understand. Now that they were both living together in the Fringe, there was no way Han Shu would let Han Hao leave his sight no matter what. But what Tyre said could not be ignored. The God Hunter Alliance was notorious in the 12 dominions. Many family clans were after the God Hunter Alliance's whereabouts. If they were to learn that the God Hunter Alliance had moved its headquarters to the Fringe, the experts of the 12 dominions would surely launch an attack on the Fringe. Brian, this is indeed a problem. Although the Fringe has always been chaotic, it has always been confined to the Fringe. Even the fiends who can no longer survive in the 12 dominions will not return to the Fringe to wreak havoc under our jurisdiction, said Asura with his brows bunched. He then said to Han Sho, the reason why the Overgods allowed the Fringe to exist is that the people of the Fringe won't do anything out of line in the dominions. They can't wait for us to kill each other in the Fringe. But the God Hunters are different. Their targets are not limited to the Fringe. They are the public enemy of the entire Elysium. What do you think? Han Sho also knew how serious the matter was. He nodded and said, I will handle this matter. Good. As long as you handle this matter well, you will have a share in the Amphilos. Tyre laughed heartily and said, we must all agree on how to deal with the God Hunters. The God Hunter Alliance has always wanted to take over the Fringe. It is only because they are wary of the 5 of us that they dare not do so. Although the 5 of us have always been competing with each other in the Fringe, as soon as the God Hunter Alliance tries to invade the Fringe, we will work together to drive them out. That's right. The God Hunters are the public enemy of the entire Elysium. For the sake of the Fringe's survival, we must not let them talk about us, said Logue solemnly. It seemed that the sovereigns had indeed reached an agreement on this matter. All right, I said I'll take care of it. Han Sho frowned and said impatiently. Okay, today's matter ends here. We will go back and give up the Monarch store that originally belonged to Salus. You can send someone over to take it over. Tyre nodded. Without any nonsense, he turned into a dark shadow and disappeared. Haha, welcome to the Amphilos. Logue congratulated Han Shu with a smile before leaving the dormant volcano. Wasis was the last. He looked at Han Shu coldly and snorted. I helped you today because Tyre and Roger plotted against me before. I don't mean anything else. Don't misunderstand. Han Shu nodded with a smile and said, no matter what, I have to thank you. I don't need your thanks. Wasis also left with a cold expression. After watching Wasis leave, Han Shu suddenly felt that Wasis wasn't a bad guy. At least he wasn't as scheming as the sovereigns. Han Shu took a glance at Asura. Although Asura had given him a lot of convenience since he first entered the Fringe, Han Shu was still on guard against Asura. Disregarding the strength of the sovereigns, Han Sho felt that Asura was no less cunning than Tyre. Asura had been using Han Sho to deal with the sovereigns from the very beginning. Asura had been investing in Han Sho according to Han Sho's strength. Han Sho had unknowingly tacitly acknowledged Asura as an ally. Han Sho didn't dare to fully trust Asura. He had long been on guard against him. If Han Sho had to choose an ally from the fringe, Han Sho would probably choose Wasis after careful consideration. Wasis was not a cunning person. As long as others showed him some respect, he would respond appropriately. To Han Sho, Wasis was more reliable. After the other three sovereigns left, Asura looked at Han Sho smilingly and asked in a soft voice, "Brian, have you thought about how to deal with this matter?" Han Sho was jolted awake from his thoughts. He put on a faint smile and replied, "I haven't decided yet. But don't worry, I will take care of this matter." "Good, I believe you will take care of it," Asura said gently. "I will return to the underground palace. You can return to the Amphilas and take over the other three sovereign shops. I believe that after today, the other three sovereigns won't dare to openly attack you. Thank you for your help." Han Sho thanked Asura again. Asura nodded and said no more. He left after the other three sovereigns. Han Sho pondered for a moment. Just as he was about to leave the extinct volcano, his heart suddenly jolted. He looked at a figure that was quietly approaching from a distance. When the figure approached, Han Sho asked, "It's you?" The person who had returned was one of the sovereigns, Wasis. He looked around to make sure that Tyre, Log, and Asura weren't around before he came to Han Sho and said in a cold voice, "Tyre and Log have used a secret channel to spread the news of you and Han Hao to the God Hunter Alliance. The God Hunter Alliance has its own rules. They might do something to Han Hao. Tell him to be careful." After taking a short pause, Wasis hesitated for a moment, looked deeply at Han Sho, and said, "Also, be careful of Asura." Upon finishing those words, Wasis turned around and left. It appeared that he chose to return after Asura left because he did not want Asura to hear what he had to say. "Wait!" Han Sho shouted when he saw that Wasis was about to leave in a hurry. Wasis stopped for a moment, but he did not turn around. He coldly said, "I am telling you this because you showed mercy in the battle just now. I don't want to have anything to do with you. The God Hunter Alliance isn't easy to deal with. Good luck to you." Han Sho chuckled and said, "Thank you for your reminder. I will remember this favor." Right, if one day I have to fight Tyre and Log, if you can just stand by and watch, I will be very grateful. Let's talk about this after you have dealt with your own troubles. Wasis coldly groaned and left without another word. This fella sure is worth befriending. After Wasis left, Han Sho muttered to himself, "Be careful of Asura, be careful of Asura." Han Sho's lips curled into a mysterious smile. 3 days later, on a cliff in the northwest of the Amphilas, Little Skull Han Hao dismissed all the god hunters in the vicinity and waited for Han Sho's arrival. 10 minutes later, a faint light flashed and Han Sho appeared in front of Han Hao. "Congratulations, father." I knew that father had made another breakthrough. Little Skull Han Hao revealed a rare smile on his face. It was completely different from his usual cold and emotionless demeanor. He appeared more humane. Han Sho put on a smile and sat down on the rock in front of him. He said, "It's done. The 10 sovereign shops in the Amphilas are now ours. With father personally taking action, there won't be any problems." Han Hao put on a knowing face and asked, "By the way, should we return the loot to Tanai's shops?" "No need. They didn't mention anything about it. They don't give a damn about the owners of those shops." Han Sho pondered for a moment and said, "Don't leave the fringe for the time being. I have just received news that Tyre and Log have leaked information about us to the God Hunter Alliance. They might try to attack you." Upon hearing those words, Little Skull Han Hao's purple demon eye flashed, and he said, "No wonder." Under Han Sho's astonished gaze, Han Hao explained, "A few days ago, I received a message from the God Hunter Alliance. They want me to go to the Death Dominion to discuss the fringe. I was wondering why they were suddenly interested in the fringe. It seems that they have other plans. What's the situation with the God Hunter Alliance? Who else is above you? Han Shuo's curiosity was piqued when he heard this, and he immediately asked. Above the leaders are the hegemons. Each of the 12 dominions has a hegemon. They are the true leaders of the God Hunter Alliance. They are in charge of managing the entire God Hunter Alliance. These 12 hegemons come from different dominions. They are all overgods like Salus. I only know the hegemon in charge of the Death Dominion. I don't know much about the other hegemons. Naturally, Han Hao wouldn't hide anything from Han Shuo. He told Han Shuo everything he knew about the God Hunter Alliance. Han Shuo was shocked. He knew that the God Hunter Alliance had been able to wreak havoc in the 10 dominions for so many years because they had overgods. He had personally seen one of them back in the Darkness Dominion, so he had long prepared himself for it. But when Han Hao told him that there were 12 of them in the God Hunter Alliance, Han Shuo was shocked. After giving it some thought, Han Shuo realized that it was no wonder that even Tyre, Log, and the others were so apprehensive of the God Hunter Alliance. Even when Salus was present, they only had 5 hegemons while the God Hunter Alliance had 12 hegemons. It was obvious that the God Hunter Alliance was much more terrifying. Is it the overgod of the Death Dominion who wants you to go? Han Shuo asked after thinking for a moment. Yes. Only he has the right to command me. Little Skull nodded. Don't go back. Leave the God Hunter Alliance as soon as possible. That guy must be up to no good by asking you to go back, said Han Shuo, fearing that something might happen to him. I've never planned to go back, Han Hao said calmly. The God Hunter Alliance doesn't have any restrictions on me. Since I've come to the Fringe, I have no intention of listening to their orders. To me, only Father, Little Gold, and the others are important. I won't listen to anyone else. Then I'm relieved. Han Shuo chuckled. He thought that Little Skull, Han Hao, was indeed unrestrained. It seemed that Han Hao would only listen to Han Shuo's orders. With that, Han Shuo would be able to answer to the sovereigns. Chapter 892. Han Shuo had promised the sovereigns that Little Skull, Han Hao, would leave the God Hunter Alliance, and that even if a war were to break out between the Fringe and the God Hunter Alliance, Han Hao would stand on their side against the God Hunter Alliance. With Han Shuo's promise, the sovereigns no longer had any excuse to stir up trouble. Han Shuo finally moved into the Amphilas. The 10 sovereign shops that originally belonged to Salus were handed over to Han Shuo by the other sovereigns. Just like the other sovereigns, Han Shuo would take 1/5 of the Amphilas annual taxes. This amount alone was an astronomical sum. When Han Shuo first entered the Amphilas, Asura had given one of his sovereign shops to Han Shuo for Han Shuo to use as a branch of his celestial pearl pharmacy. This time, Han Shuo had taken over 10 of Salus' sovereign shops and returned one of them to Asura. This could be considered as repaying Asura's favor. From the very beginning, Han Shuo had been wary of Asura. Wasi's warning had made Han Shuo even more cautious. Therefore, Han Shuo tried his best to avoid getting too involved with Asura. He did not want others to gossip about him when he decided to act against Asura. As soon as the 10 sovereign shops were acquired, Han Shuo allowed Zovik, Metal Elite Zombie, and the others to enter the Amphilas. The fact that Metal Elite Zombie was able to set up goldstone shops in all the dominions was a testament to his extraordinary talent in this field. As soon as Metal Elite Zombie arrived at the Amphilas, Han Shuo handed over one of the sovereign shops to Metal Elite Zombie for him to use as a branch of goldstone shops in the Amphilas. Zovik was a quick-witted person who knew the ins and outs of the Fringe very well. Therefore, Han Shuo asked him to help Metal Elite Zombie set up goldstone shops as soon as possible. On top of that, Zovik was acquainted with some of the Amphilas wind spirits. Han Shuo gave him a sum of black crystal coins to establish his own network in the Fringe. After the conversation at the dormant volcano, the 3 sovereigns took the initiative to contact the owners of the shops, indicating that they should stop making things difficult for Han Shuo. The owners of the shops that had been plundered by Little Skull Han Hao to the point of insanity naturally agreed upon the orders of the 3 sovereigns. After this incident, they all understood how sinister Han Sho was. No one dared to provoke Han Sho. In addition, they also knew that the three sovereigns must have reached some sort of agreement with Han Sho. They hated and feared Han Sho, who had just risen to prominence. In the fringe, fame and reputation were very useful. Whether it was the establishment of the Goldstone shop or Zovik's intelligence gathering, Han Sho's name could be used to smooth things out. Things that would be troublesome for most people would be much easier because of Han Sho's reputation. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. During these 3 months, thanks to Metal Elite Zombie's hard work and Zovik's assistance, the Goldstone shop had been established in Tanai. With enough black crystal coins and Han Sho's prestige, Zovik had bribed some wind spirits to serve Han Sho. Although the newly established intelligence network wasn't as intricate and complicated as the other sovereigns, it was at least starting to take shape. During this period of time, Han Hao did not continue to wreak havoc in the fringe. Instead, he focused on training the god hunters that he had recently subdued. Through their unique communication method, Han Hao and Han Sho knew each other's thoughts and actions. Although the father and son didn't see each other often, they knew each other's situation like the back of their hands. One day, Han Sho, who was refining new pellets and planning to recruit all the poisons in Tanai, suddenly saw Zovik barging into his shop. Han Sho had instructed Zovik not to disturb him unless it was urgent when he was refining pellets or cultivating in seclusion. Zovik wasn't a rash person, and this was the first time in 3 months that he had barged into his shop. Moreover, judging from the urgency in Zovik's voice, Han Sho knew that something must have happened. "What's going on?" Han Sho's face sank. He had a bad premonition. Zovik was rather anxious. He saluted Han Sho and immediately replied, "I just received a message from Han Hao. He said that one of his subordinates came from the Death Dominion and reported to him about the Han family." Han Sho's expression tightened as he grew even more uneasy. He immediately asked, "What's going on?" "Han Hao's god hunters have received a message from the Han family in Ronson Canyon. Tanai and other god hunter factions have formed an alliance and are planning to attack the Han family. That subordinate was dispatched to the fringe to report the situation to Han Hao." Zovik hastily recounted what he knew. Ever since Han Sho entrusted him with the task of establishing an intelligence network, Han Sho had instructed him to keep an eye on the Han family in the Darkness Dominion. Having been in this position for some time, Zovik naturally understood the relationship between Han Sho and the Han family. Therefore, as soon as he received the urgent message from Han Hao, he reported it to Han Sho. The god hunter who reported the news to Little Skull Han Hao was Shitan's backup when he went to the God Hunter Alliance's base. He had no idea what happened in Ronson Canyon. It was the same for Han Sho. Han Sho understood that it must have been a very dangerous time. It took Han Hao's subordinate more than 4 months to travel from the Death Dominion to the fringe. In other words, the information that reached Han Sho was from 4 months ago. Han Sho's face turned gloomy. He deduced that something must have happened to the Han family in the City of Shadows of the Darkness Dominion. Otherwise, the Han family wouldn't have traveled thousands of miles to the Death Dominion. For months had passed and Han Sho had no idea how the Han family was faring. He didn't know if they had escaped from Ronson Canyon. Zovik was similarly clueless about the House of Han's current situation. Based on the information he had gathered, it was more likely that the House of Han had perished in the Ronson Canyon. Therefore, he could not find any words to comfort Han Sho and could only maintain an awkward silence. After a while, Han Sho took a deep breath and said to Zovik, "I'll be leaving the fringe for a while. Don't tell anyone that I'm leaving. If anyone asks, just tell them that I'm cultivating in the Pandemonium. It shouldn't take long for me to return. During this period of time, take care of matters in the fringe. I'll be back as soon as possible. Don't worry, my lord. I know what to do." Zovik nodded in understanding. He was an old fox in the fringe, and he knew what he should and shouldn't do in the fringe. Han Sho nodded and said, "I'll leave immediately. Keep an eye on those kids. Don't let them cause any trouble when I'm not in the Omphalos." After giving his instructions, Han Sho left the amphilas openly. As soon as he stepped out of the amphilas, he concealed his aura so that no one could detect his presence. After leaving the amphilas, Han Sho contacted Little Skull Han Hao using a special method. After the two had a private conversation, Han Sho left the amphilas and did not linger in Tanai. Witherbone's City in the Death Dominion. Among the cities in the Death Dominion, Witherbone's City's buildings were the most peculiar. Its city walls were made of the bones of unknown magical beasts. The bones were of different colors, and each piece was extremely sturdy. At first glance, Witherbone's City, which was made of many bones, looked sinister and terrifying, like a giant ferocious beast. Witherbone's City, the Kiran residence. The members of the Han family were gathered in a building made of bones. The facilities here were much worse than those in the City of Shadows. The environment here was not good either. The bone refinery was located right next to the stinky bone refinery. The bone refinement field was a place where special metals were used to forge bones. Through the mixing of some rare metals, bones could be made even harder than rocks. The bones refined by the bone refinement field could be used as buildings, and some of the best materials could be used as basic materials for divine artifacts. Most of the bones in the bone refinery came from magical beasts. There were also some that belonged to gods of the dead. Sometimes, the bones that were delivered to the bone refinery were mixed with minced meat. The Han family's residence was not far from the bone refinery. It had been some time since the Kiran family arrived in Witherbone's City of the Death Dominion. They had been living under the House of Han's roof for quite some time. In the beginning, the House of Kiran treated the House of Han warmly. However, when they realized that they couldn't reach an agreement with the House of Han, their attitude changed. The Han family had no shortage of black crystal coins and they could easily improve their living conditions. However, Sha-Tio of the Kiran residence repeatedly promised that he would improve the situation as soon as possible. He used all kinds of excuses to keep the Han family in the Kiran residence and prevented the Han family from leaving the Kiran residence. Li Wei had a close relationship with Han Sho. She had expressed her opinion on the matter many times. But unfortunately, her opinion was not valued by the Kiran family. Sha-Tio did not change his decision because of Li Wei's opinion. Han Sho, Phoebe, Emily, and the other ladies who loved cleanliness were driven mad by the stench of the bone refinery. Phoebe, Emily, and the others grew more and more impatient after receiving no response to their requests. However, the House of Kiran was extremely powerful. They were one of the most powerful family clans in Witherbone City. It seemed that they had reached an agreement with the city lord to prevent the Han family from leaving the city. I didn't expect that we would end up in another dangerous place after leaving the City of Shadows. The Kiran family is putting us under house arrest, said Phoebe angrily, but there was nothing she could do. Let's just bear with it for now. Witherbone City is even more powerful than the City of Shadows. There are divine guards stationed around the Kiran residence. It's impossible for us to leave the city by force, sighed Han Sho. Stratholm the old monster let out a soft sigh. He appeared to be dispirited. He had thought that he was finally free from the City of Shadows. Little did he expect that after escaping from the wolf's den, he would enter the tiger's mouth. Not only did the situation not improve, it became even more dangerous. What they want is Brian's medicine formulas and the training methods for the Han family guards. These are the foundation for our Han family to establish a foothold on Elysium. I will not give them those things even if I have to die, said Phoebe resolutely. After such a long time, Phoebe knew what the Kiran family and Witherbone City were after. Chapter 893 Witherbone City, the City Lord's Mansion. City Lord Hill, Sha-Tio of the House of Kiran, and the patriarchs of several major family clans of Witherbone City were gathered together. You still haven't gotten anything out of him? Hill sat on the throne made of white bones with a frown on his face. As the City Lord of Witherbone City, it was only natural that Hill cultivated in the energy of death. He possessed late-stage high god strength. 100 years ago, the over-god of death had left a divine mark on him. With the help of that divine mark, it was possible for him to make a breakthrough and become an over-god within a short period of time. Even though he would never possess a unique quintessence like the over-god of death, being an over-god was still a terrifying feat. There were only 12 over-gods on Elysium who possessed the quintessence, and only a few dozen over-gods who did not possess the quintessence. Hill had been cultivating diligently, and taking care of Witherbone's city for the over-god of death just so that he could obtain a divine mark to make a breakthrough and become an over-god. Hill was an ambitious man. As soon as he heard from Shatio about the miraculous cooperation between the Han family's celestial pro-pharmacy and the Han family guards, he immediately had other ideas. Shatio was not a kind-hearted person either. The two immediately made preparations and led the Han family to Witherbone's city from Hoff's and Larrickson's pursuit. Hill and Shatio's divine guards were very courteous to them. But as soon as they arrived at Witherbone's city, Hill immediately asked Shatio to find a way to obtain information from the Han family. When he discovered that the Han family was being tight-lipped, he immediately ordered his divine guards to be stationed near the Kiran residence to prevent the Han family from establishing themselves in the city. Shatio shook his head in a distressed manner and said, "No matter what I offer, they won't give me those two things. They have kept the prescriptions of the medicines and the training methods of the Han family guards tightly under wraps. The Han family no longer has a foothold in the City of Shadows. Although their celestial pro-pharmacy still has branches in several cities, they do not have the power to protect all of them. That young man named Brian is still in the fringe." "What else do they want?" said Benfazer, another patriarch of a family clan in Witherbone's city. "I wonder what they are thinking." Shatio frowned and said, "We have made it so obvious. Logically speaking, the Han family should know what we want. They should also know that we won't let them go if we can't get what we want. Why do they insist? Those families that have business dealings with the Han family keep sending people over, saying that they want to discuss business with the Han family. Their purpose should be similar to ours." Hill knitted his brows and said to Shatio, "We have to speed up the process. We won't be able to keep this secret for long. Those families are not easy to deal with. It won't be long before they send their people to Witherbone's city. At that time, it will be troublesome if they know what we are doing. Give me another month. If the Han family is still so insistent after a month, don't blame me for being impolite." Shatio also knew that this matter could not be dragged on any longer. Sheer was getting impatient, and this matter had to be settled as soon as possible. They could not let their efforts go to waste. "All right, as soon as possible. If the Han family still refuses to give in after a month, then we won't be polite anymore." Sheer sneered and said, "If they refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, then we will kill them all. We cultivators of the energy of death know much more about souls than ordinary people. I don't believe that their souls can keep their secrets. It's better not to do that. If we go too far and the news is leaked, not only will the other families join forces to suppress us, but it will also bring us a lot of trouble. If possible, we should let the Han family take the initiative to cooperate with us and tell us some of their secrets. Only then will we be on our side," Benfazer said in a deep voice. Shatio nodded and replied, "I will try my best to settle this matter in a gentler way. If we really have no other choice, we will have to start a massacre," Shatio said with a cold face. "Compared to the two biggest secrets of the Han family, this is a risk worth taking. All right, let's do that. I will give you another month. If you don't kill them after a month, I will send my men to deal with them. In short, the two biggest secrets must belong to Witherbone's city." Sheer waved his hand and said, "All right, that's all for today. Shatio, please do your best." Shatio rose to his feet and returned to the Kiran residence without wasting any more time in the manor. The ancient lizard king, Degassi, was walking towards the smelly building next to the bone refinery. Degassi wore a helpless face and sighed all the way back. He did not know what to say after arriving at the building. As a fellow traveler from profound continent, Degassi felt very bad when he saw how the Han family was treated in the Kieran residence. However, Degassi was just a lowly member of the Kieran residence. If it weren't for the fact that he was close to many members of the Han family, Shatio wouldn't have given him the task of delivering the message. Stadholm and Ermike had heard of Degassi back when they were on Profound Continent. They had heard a lot of unfavorable news from Degassi. Although they were furious and dissatisfied with the House of Kieran, they did not hold any grudges against Degassi. Stadholm the old monster put on a bitter smile when he saw Degassi walking towards them. He pretended to ask in a soft voice, "Haha, is there more news?" Stadholm knew that Degassi's visit was definitely not good news. He asked in such a manner so that Degassi would not blame himself too much. "Sigh, I really don't want to meet you here." Degassi sighed. He continued, "Back in the City of Shadows, at least you were treated in a dignified manner. Brian was even more courteous to me. Now that you have come to the Kieran residence, not only can I not give you the same treatment, I have to make you suffer like this. Sigh, it's all because I'm too weak to say anything. Otherwise, things might be better. This has nothing to do with you. Li Wei is the little princess of the Kieran residence. Her words are still useless. Shatio won't care about anyone's opinion when there's so much profit to be had. You don't have to blame yourself," Ermike replied. After a short pause, he asked, "What's the bad news? Some people deliberately let me eavesdrop on their conversation. Hill and the Patriarch had a discussion today. Hill gave the Patriarch a month's time. If the Patriarch can't get what he wants from you after a month, they will kill you and take everything from your souls." Degassi sighed, his face full of pain. "Let's fight them to the death." Gilbert was enraged. He shouted, "They've gone too far. I have never seen anyone more shameless than them. Back when we first established a branch of Celestial Pearl Pharmacy in Witherbone City, they were the friendliest and most hospitable of us. Our Celestial Pearl Pharmacy has earned them countless black crystal coins. But now that we are in a disadvantageous position, they have changed their attitude. They are even more despicable than Hofs and Larrickson. They are just as despicable as Wallace. If this doesn't work, we can only fight them to the death." Sandwith's eyes were bloodshot. He had been repressed the most during this period of time. He often had the urge to destroy something at all costs. However, Balin stopped him every time and told him to endure it. Sanguiner knew that the Han family would be done for if he took action. They were outsiders in Witherbone City. Although the Han family guards were powerful, without the support of top-notch experts, they would not be able to escape from the siege of Witherbone City's divine guards. In the end, they would all perish in Witherbone City. The situation here was even worse than in the City of Shadows. Back then, Wallace had used a borrowed knife to kill the Han family because he was apprehensive of Han Shaw's relationship with the Overgod of Destiny. Therefore, unless absolutely necessary, Wallace would not openly attack the Han family. Hill and Shatio of Witherbone City thought nothing of the young Han Shaw. In their minds, Han Shaw was just a genius pharmacist. They were unaware of the relationship between Han Shaw and the Overgod of Destiny. If they were to attack Han Shaw, they would not hesitate to destroy the Han family. "If we take the initiative, we can kill at least a few hundred of the House of Kieran's divine guards. But of course, we will be dead for sure. I think we should come up with a plan to kill as many members of the House of Kieran as we can. Even if we are to die, we want our deaths to be worthwhile," said Balin calmly. However, his words revealed that he had truly lost all hope. Balin knew that the Han family had no hope of escaping alive. He believed that the only thing he could do now was to deal as much damage as possible to the Kieran family. "No!" cried Emily. She said, "Brian definitely doesn't want anything to happen to us. We can't be so impulsive." "Then what should we do?" asked Gilbert. "We have no other way out. We are going to die either way. At the very least, we can't let them have an easy time." Balin, Sanguiner, Gilbert, the three of you know Brian's demonic formations the best. Prepare a copy of the demonic formations that the divine guards use, instructed Emily while enduring the pain in her heart. How can we do that? Shouted Sanguiner. They will never let us go. Even if we give them some, we won't be able to escape. Degassi, did you help us spread the news? Asked Emily. Instead of answering Sanguiner's question, she asked Degassi. You gave me 1,000,000 black crystal coins and I used them all. If he is still alive, he will receive the news sooner or later. Degassi nodded and said with a bitter smile. He continued, Hill, Château, and the others did not take Brian seriously at all. They did not restrict my actions at all. Emily nodded and heaved a sigh of relief. She said to the party, Let's buy as much time as we can. Let's hope that Brian can find us. Chapter 894. Han Shuo rushed to the Death Dominion at the speed of light. After entering the Skybreak realm, it was as though his body was no longer affected by the gravity of the Elysium. He could travel thousands of miles a day at an unimaginable speed. It took Little Skull and that god hunter under Han Hao's command 3 to 4 months to travel from the Death Dominion to the Fringe. Han Shuo, on the other hand, flew to the Death Dominion at full speed and arrived at the Death Dominion in 7 days. The first city he arrived at was the City of Wraiths, which was closest to the Fringe. After entering the territory of the City of Wraiths, Han Shuo immediately slowed down. He no longer traveled day and night. After traveling at full speed for 7 days, every cell in his body was exerted. Han Shuo had consumed a significant amount of energy. After arriving at the City of Wraiths, Han Shuo needed to rest and recover his lost energy. On the other hand, he wanted to inquire if the Han family were in the Death Dominion. From the movements of the Han family, Han Shuo knew that the Han family must have traveled thousands of miles from Fort Lostberg to the Death Dominion to escape from the pursuit of the City of Shadows. The Ronson Canyon was located at the border of the Death Dominion. If the Han family managed to escape from the God Hunters in the Ronson Canyon, they should have arrived at the Death Dominion by now. Han Shuo wasn't sure if Phoebe and the others could escape from the Ronson Canyon, but he had a little bit of hope in his heart. In order to avoid making a wasted trip, he had to find out if the House of Han had entered the Death Dominion. Han Shuo spent half a day traveling through the outskirts of the city. By dusk, Han Shuo was standing in front of the City of Wraiths. As one of the 6 cities in the Death Dominion, the City of Wraiths had its own architectural style and unique features. What set it apart from other cities was that the city was filled with wraiths. Talbot, the city lord of the City of Wraiths, was an expert in controlling wraiths. He had collected the wraiths of many humans and beasts and imprisoned them in energy towers. He used a mysterious energy to bind the wraiths together and even sealed them on the city walls. Although the wraiths weren't very powerful, they could help him monitor the City of Wraiths. Talbot would be able to know through the wraiths that there were any disturbances in the City of Wraiths. If someone tried to invade the City of Wraiths, Talbot would also be able to swiftly receive the news. Standing at the center of the City of Wraiths, Han Shuo creased his brows in disdain as he sensed the weak life forms hidden on the walls and energy towers. Wraiths were used in a similar manner to Han Shuo's demon generals. However, Han Shuo knew that these wraiths were inferior to the lowest level of demon generals. They were merely eyes that Talbot had placed in every corner of the city. Moreover, they were eyes that could be easily discovered. The offensive power of wraiths was minuscule. They posed no threat to ordinary base gods. For a character of Han Shuo's level, even if he stood still and thousands of wraiths swarmed him, they wouldn't be able to do any real damage to him. The wraiths didn't have any significant offensive power. They couldn't move after being sealed in the walls, and they didn't have the ability to evolve. No matter how one compared them, they were far inferior to the demon generals in Han Shuo's cauldron of myriad demon. Therefore, Han Shuo only needed to sense the living beings in the walls to feel contempt. Every city had people who specialized in selling all kinds of information. Naturally, the City of Wraiths was no exception. As long as one was willing to spend some black crystal coins, there was bound to be someone who specialized in this business. In the city of Wraiths, on the West Street where crooks mixed with honest folk, most of the gods in the city were from outside. Here, one could purchase all kinds of special goods. Of course, information was also one of the special goods. Information clearinghouses were special shops that specialized in collecting and selling information. Spending black crystal coins here, one could obtain all kinds of information one needed. Even if there was no such information for the time being, as long as one paid a certain amount of black crystal coins, they would send someone to find out the information one needed. You would definitely get your money's worth. Normally, the information clearinghouses were cold and deserted. Very few people would pay attention to them. But when something earth-shattering happened in any dominion, information-gathering shops like the information clearinghouses would become as crowded as a marketplace. Many major family clans that didn't have any connections in other dominions would spend a certain amount of black crystal coins to purchase information. As soon as Han Sha entered the information clearinghouse, he saw an old woman resting in a dark corner with her eyes lowered. With just a glance, Han Sha could tell that she cultivated in the energy of death and possessed mid-stage low-god strength. Han Sha scanned the manor with his consciousness, and discovered that there was no one else in the manor other than this old woman. Han Sha calmed himself down and walked straight to her. He suddenly threw a money pouch containing no less than 10,000 black crystal coins onto the black wooden table in front of her, causing a loud clang. I want to know about the situation of the Han family in the City of Shadows. If you have any information, this pouch of black crystal coins is yours. Han Sha was rather nervous when he asked the question. Perhaps in his heart, he believed that the Han family had suffered a fatal blow in the Ronson Canyon. He subconsciously refused to accept such an outcome. The sound of the black crystal coins colliding against each other was melodious and pleasing to the ear. The old woman who was resting with her eyes closed suddenly opened her glistening green eyes like a hungry beast that smelled blood. She did not answer immediately but placed her hand on the pouch of black crystal coins and carefully and greedily groped them. She nodded, as though confirming that the black crystal coins were genuine. Then, she raised her head and sized up Han Sha with narrowed eyes. The dim radiance in the old woman's eyes grew brighter and brighter. Her wrinkled face carried an odd expression. She seemed to be puzzled, but at the same time, she seemed to have understood something. After staring at Han Sha for a long while, she softly exhaled and asked in a deep voice, "Why do you pay attention to the Han family?" Haha, it seems that quite a lot of people have been asking about the Han family recently. Han Sha stared blankly for a moment before he replied impatiently. I'll give you the money and you give me the information. Cut the crap. Information clearinghouses only sold information and generally wouldn't ask about the identity or background of the buyer. This was a rule that everyone knew. The old woman's behavior was clearly against the rules of the information clearinghouse. How many types of formations are there in the 8 Desolation and Torment formation? Do you know? The old woman suddenly asked as she looked at Han Sha. Han Sha's expression abruptly changed when he heard these words. He reached out with his right hand and suddenly grabbed the old woman's neck, lifting her into the air. His expression was gloomy, cold, and severe as he violently shouted, "Who are you? How do you know these things?" At the same time, the front door of the information clearinghouse closed with a loud bang and all the windows were locked in an instant. A strange energy instantly filled the information clearinghouse, isolating it from prying eyes and making it impossible for anyone to know what was going on inside. The old woman, whose neck was grabbed by Han Sha, immediately turned dark purple. She used all her hands and feet to struggle against Han Sha, but the invincible body made her dizzy. After a while, she lost all her strength and her green eyes rolled back, looking as if she could die at any moment. After confirming that no one would be able to discover anything out of the ordinary, Han Sha tossed the old woman aside. Her entire body was pressed against the hard wall by an invisible force. Apart from panting heavily, she couldn't move at all. "Speak! How do you know about the 8 Desolation and Torment formation?" Han Sha's face was cold as he stood 5 meters away from the old woman. With a thought, the nails on his index finger protruded out, and the sharp almond blade flickered with a chilling light, making Han Shuo look even more terrifying. After panting for a while, the old woman coughed a few times before she regained the ability to speak. She immediately shrieked in fear when she saw the terrifying Han Shuo coldly sizing her up and down. "I don't know anything about the 8 Desolation and Torment formation. All I know is that someone gave our information clearinghouse a large sum of black crystal coins to pass on a message for them. Speak clearly or I will skin you alive!" Han Shuo shouted impatiently. "All of our information clearinghouses have received orders from our superiors. If anyone asks about the Han family in the City of Shadows, we are to ask them if they know how many types of formations there are in the 8 Desolation and Torment formation. If anyone can answer the question, we will immediately report the information to us." She put on a terrified face and no longer dared to hesitate. She hastily shouted, "Many people have been asking about the Han family recently. I have asked them the same question, but none of them have heard of the 8 Desolation and Torment formation. You are the only one who reacted so strongly. It seems that you are the one we are waiting for." Bam! With a thud, she fell limply to the ground. The force that bound her body suddenly disappeared, and she knew that she had come back from the gates of hell. "There are 18 types of formations in total." Han Shuo waved his hand and the old woman was pulled to the chair she was sitting on. Han Shuo looked at her with a sullen face and asked, "Speak. Tell me everything I need to know. It really is you." The old woman nodded as she rubbed her neck that was nearly snapped by Han Shuo's grip. She put on a tearful face and said, "Someone gave our information clearinghouse a large sum of money and told us to inform you that the Han family is in Witherbone City. They are in dire straits and they want you to go to the Kiran residence as soon as possible." "What else?" Han Shuo heaved a sigh of relief when he heard that the Han family was not killed in the Ronson Canyon. His cold face relaxed a little and his tone softened a little. "That's all. I just want you to go to the Kiran residence in Witherbone City as soon as possible." She looked at Han Shuo with a frightened face and handed the bag of black crystal coins to Han Shuo. She said pitifully, "This information is free. Take your black crystal coins. I'm sorry about that. Consider this bag of black crystal coins as compensation for your loss." Han Shuo forced a smile. He suddenly relaxed after learning that the Han family was safe and sound. He then left the information clearinghouse and prepared to go to Witherbone City. "Damn it! He almost killed me!" After Han Shuo left, the old woman from the information clearinghouse wore a face full of hatred. She pondered for a moment with a gloomy face. Then, as though she suddenly recalled something, she hastily went to a secret room at the back of the information clearinghouse and took out a magic mirror that was essential for the information clearinghouse. A string of numbers were printed on the magic mirror. The smooth surface of the magic mirror gradually revealed the face of an impatient young man. The man took a glance at the old woman and arrogantly asked, "What can I do for you?" "Young Master Portlam, I heard that you are still looking for news about Brian, the patriarch of the Han family in the City of Shadows. Is that true?" the old woman asked in a flattering smile. The House of Batchelder was one of the largest family clans in the City of Wraiths. As the young master of the House of Batchelder, Portlam had ascended to High God realm at a very young age. His reputation in the City of Wraiths was resounding. Ever since he suffered a loss at the hands of Han Shuo, Portlam had been longing for revenge. Unfortunately, Han Shuo had always been in the City of Shadows and Portlam hadn't been able to find an opportunity to do so. Ever since the news that Han Shuo had left the City of Shadows, Portlam had contacted the Information Clearinghouse and asked them to look for news about Han Shuo, and inform him immediately if they found any news about Han Shuo. However, ever since Han Shuo left the City of Shadows, he had been very elusive. He would spend most of his time with Rose and would avoid explaining himself to anyone. Therefore, even the Information Clearinghouse had a hard time keeping track of Han Shuo's whereabouts. It was this old woman who had reported to Portlam that Han Shuo was in Ethereal City. However, as Ethereal City was too far away from the City of Wraiths and Han Shaw had entered the Fringe not long after, Portlam had no choice but to give up on hunting down Han Shaw. Ever since Han Shaw entered the Fringe, the Information Clearinghouse's information could not reach the Fringe. Therefore, Portlam had no way of knowing about Han Shaw's whereabouts. Time flew by. As soon as Portlam heard news of Han Shaw, the hatred in his heart did not subside over time. He hastily asked, "Where did that fellow appear this time? If he isn't too far away from the City of Wraiths, I will let him know the consequences of offending me." Not far at all," the old woman replied smilingly. "He is in the City of Wraiths. He has just left my place." "Ha! I believe that he hasn't left the City of Wraiths yet. Your house of Batchelder is right next to the city gate that he is about to leave through. If you are ready now, you should be able to stop him before he leaves the city." Portlam laughed heartily. His smile was extremely malevolent. He said to the old woman through the magical mirror, "If your information is reliable, I will pay you 100,000 black crystal coins. All right, enough talk. I will make my move immediately." Upon finishing those words, Portlam cut off the connection. The old woman looked at the magical mirror that had regained its tranquility. She put on a sinister smile and muttered to herself, "I have told you everything you should know about the Information Clearinghouse's way of making money according to the rules. I have completed my task. As for revealing your whereabouts to Portlam, that is another business deal between me and Portlam. This is not against the rules of the Information Clearinghouse." After learning that the Han family had not perished in the Ronson Canyon, Han Shaw could finally relax. For the time being, he did not know what kind of humiliation the Han family had suffered in Witherbone City. From his point of view, as long as the Han family were still alive, he would be able to salvage whatever had happened to them in Witherbone City. Han Shaw did not slow down his pace. Not long after he entered the City of Wraiths, he decided to leave through another city gate. Inside the City of Wraiths, Han Shaw did not dare to travel at his maximum speed. There were wraiths in every corner of the city and divine guards loitering around everywhere. If Han Shaw were to recklessly gallop through the City of Wraiths, he would definitely attract the attention of the divine guards and cause unnecessary trouble. Han Shaw slowly approached the city gate that led to Witherbone City. When he was about to reach the city gate, Han Shaw's consciousness suddenly sensed that a large number of divine guards and experts had gathered in that area. He did not know what was going on. Han Shaw did not immediately release his demon generals to spy on the situation. From what Han Shaw could see, no matter what was going on there, it would have nothing to do with him. He did not want to cause any trouble for the time being. He just wanted to leave the City of Wraiths as soon as possible. The city gate was the closest to Witherbone City. Han Shaw did not change his direction and arrived at the city gate 10 minutes later. As far as the eye could see, there were many divine guards wearing special family clan insignia on the city wall. Standing at the city gate was a young man with a frivolous and arrogant demeanor. It was none other than Portlam, whom Han Shaw had dealings with back in the City of Shadows. As soon as Han Shaw saw that Portlam was blocking the city gate, as well as the expressions of the divine guards around him and the two high gods from the House of Batchelder, Han Shaw immediately realized that he might be their target. After thinking for a moment, Han Shaw realized that the old woman in charge of the information broker must have leaked the news of his arrival. When dealing with the old woman, Han Shaw had meticulously shut all the doors and windows of the information transmission station. He had also released his energy to prevent anyone from eavesdropping. Even City Lord Talbot, who had scattered his wraiths to every corner of the city, wouldn't be able to figure out what was going on in the information transmission station through his wraiths. Moreover, Talbot didn't know Kieran's identity, so he wouldn't know what kind of relationship he had with Portlam. The old woman was the only one who could guess Han Shaw's identity from his expression and the information he gathered. Therefore, Han Shaw did not need to think too much to know that she was the informant. Han Shaw felt a little remorse in his heart. He did not try to avoid Portlam but continued walking towards the city gate. With Han Shaw's strength now in the Skybreak realm, there was simply no one in the City of Wraiths who could stop him. Even if the City Lord of the City of Wraiths, Talbot, or the Patriarch of the House of Batchelder personally came, Hanshaw was confident that he could easily get rid of them and leave the City of Wraiths without any trouble. "Brian, it's been a while. Haha, I heard that your Han family has been driven out of the City of Shadows by Wallace? Back in the City of Shadows, you were under Wallace's protection and I didn't do anything to you. Now that you have the guts to come to the City of Wraiths, are you prepared to die?" Portlam had been waiting for this day for a very long time. He could still remember the scene of him being chased by Hanshaw in the banquet hall of Celestial Pro Pharmacy. If it wasn't for Charlotte helping him, he might have been killed by Hanshaw back in the City of Shadows. Hanshaw was concerned about the Han family of Witherbone City, and did not want to waste his breath on Portlam. He shouted impatiently, "Portlam, I had forgotten about you. But since you are so determined to die, don't blame me." Chapter 895. Ha! Portlam threw his head back and laughed heartily. It was obvious that he did not take Hanshaw's threat seriously. "You should know that this is the City of Wraiths, my territory. No one will speak up for you today." Portlam pointed at Hanshaw in an arrogant and haughty manner. The House of Batchelder was extremely powerful in the City of Wraiths, and Portlam was the favored young master of the House of Batchelder. On top of that, the Han family had declined. Portlam believed that even if he killed Hanshaw in the City of Wraiths, no one would say anything about it. "Young master, there is no need for you to take action against this arrogant fellow. Leave it to us." One of the high gods beside Portlam stepped forward and volunteered. He cultivated in the energy of earth and possessed early-stage high god strength. He had a robust body and appeared to be very powerful. "Young master, he can't escape." Another high god cultivating in the energy of wind walked out from behind Portlam. He and the high god cultivating in the energy of earth stood on either side of Hanshaw. Once Portlam gave the order, they would immediately attack. In the City of Wraiths, Portlam did not have to worry about not having enough manpower. As a member of the House of Batchelder with the most potential, his future was limitless. Those high gods of the House of Batchelder had long regarded Portlam as the future patriarch of the House of Batchelder. Naturally, they would seize the opportunity to show off their abilities. Hanshaw did not know whether to laugh or cry when he saw the two early-stage high gods approaching him with sneers on their faces. The last time Hanshaw fought Portlam, Portlam's strength was similar to Hanshaw's. But after so many years, as Hanshaw's strength continued to grow exponentially, even over-god existences like Salus and Wasis were no longer worthy of his attention. And now, two mere early-stage high gods wanted to kill him. "Portlam, oh Portlam, it seems that you have stayed in the Death Dominion for too long. You have no idea what's going on here," Hanshaw said in a mocking smile. He had fought Ralph in the City of Shadows and defeated him. If Portlam was truly paying attention to him, he should have known what's going on here. How is it any different from suicide for Portlam and his two high gods to stop me? However, Hanshaw was wrong. It was not that Portlam did not know about the rumors from the City of Shadows. He just did not believe them. Are you talking about the time you defeated Ralph in the City of Shadows? Brian, only those who have not fought you will believe that you can defeat Ralph. I have only left the City of Shadows for a few years. Do you really think that you can make such rapid progress to the point of defeating Ralph? Haha, this is just a show put up by you and Wallace. The goal is to get you the position of Chief of the Fifth Corps. Do you really think that no one knows about this? It was obvious that Portlam did not believe the rumors that he heard from the City of Shadows. It was normal for him to misunderstand. On Elysium, it would take at least 100 years for an early-stage high god to make a breakthrough from early-stage to mid-stage high god. Portlam felt that it was reasonable for Hanshaw to not be able to make a breakthrough that quickly. From his point of view, the rumors from the City of Shadows were just a farce orchestrated by himself and Wallace. Hanshaw could not help but laugh. He shook his head and did not say anything else. He did not pay any attention to the two lesser high gods who were approaching him from either side of him. He walked towards the city gate where Portlam was in a relaxed and composed manner. From the beginning to the end, Han Shaw did not even glance at the two overbearing high gods. He simply ignored them. It was as though in Han Shaw's eyes the two high gods who were approaching him step by step did not exist and could not affect him in the slightest. Han Shaw's arrogant attitude had thoroughly infuriated the two high gods who were approaching Han Shaw as though they were facing a formidable foe. Without waiting for Portlam's command, the two exchanged glances and suddenly pounced at Han Shaw. They had already released their domains of divinity to absorb the energy of earth and wind into their attacks. An earth spear and a curved wind blade, containing the divine energy of earth and wind, whizzed towards Han Shaw's chest. Clang! The spear of earth and blade of wind stabbed into Han Shaw's chest, but didn't pass through as the two had expected. Instead, it was as if they'd stabbed into iron and stone, and an ear-piercing sound of metal clashing rang out. Two tyrannical and ruthless energies suddenly surged towards the two high gods along with the earth's spear and wind blade. The two high gods who were caught off guard were sent flying by the rebounding energies. The earth's spear and wind blade shattered into pieces in midair. Without even looking, with one thought, Han Shaw made a pulling motion with his two hands. Invisible energy was suddenly injected into the shattered earth's spear and wind blade. The weapons that had fallen to the ground after shattering seemed to have come to life. They flew at an even faster speed towards the two high gods who were involuntarily thrown away. The shattered earth's spear and sewing fragments accurately pierced into the bodies of the two high gods. Fresh blood violently spurted out. The earth's spear and wind blade fragments did not stop there. Under the manipulation of an invisible energy, the fragments were like scissors that made crunching noises inside the bodies of the two high gods. It seemed as though the fragments were grinding the internal organs of the two high gods into pieces, inch by inch. The two high gods did not die immediately. Amidst the bone-chilling crunching noises, the two were screaming, shrieking, and crying, thud. The two finally landed on the ground. Blood splattered everywhere. The moment they landed, the two seemed to have exhausted all of their life force. Their wild howls suddenly quieted down. Other than the gurgling of blood from their bodies, there was no other sound. With one thought, Han Shaw exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. The grayish mass of air, like an astonishingly viscous paste, swirled above the two corpses and gently carried the two souls back into Han Shaw's body. After entering the Skybreak realm in demonic arts, Han Shaw's control of energy had reached the acme of perfection. It was so exquisite that he could use a trace of demonic yuan to separate a cell from another person's body. Using energy to restrain a person's soul had become even more effortless. In but an instant, the two high gods who had charged at Han Shaw to the brim with energy met a tragic end on the spot. The despairing cries of the two did not stop with their deaths. They lingered on the divine guards of the House of Batchelder and the surroundings. Suddenly, a divine guard at the city gate took a step back and declared his stance. He said to Portlam, "The grudge between you and him has nothing to do with us." Then, he instructed his subordinate, "Open the city gate." This divine guard was a subordinate of City Lord Talbot. Previously, as he wasn't sure of Han Shaw's strength, under Portlam's persuasion, he agreed to close the city gate so that he could settle the grudge between him and Han Shaw. But when he saw Han Shaw effortlessly kill the two high gods of the House of Batchelder, he immediately realized how foolish his decision was. He hastily declared his stance, hoping to avoid a conflict with Han Shaw. Han Shaw paid no heed to the Divine Guard's stance. To him, no matter what stance the Divine Guard took, he would not be able to stop him from leaving the City of Wraiths. Han Shaw wore a faint, mocking smile on his face as he looked at the stunned Portlam. He shook his head, let out a soft sigh, and said helplessly, "How pitiful! You didn't even know what's going on. You actually tried to kill me with two mediocre characters. Ha ha, Portlam, you are truly naive." Portlam was indeed stunned. The two high gods were killed so easily. Their deaths were not heroic and worthless. But Han Shu appeared so relaxed. It was as though killing 2 high gods was easier than stepping on 2 ants. Portlam did not even see the slightest sign of strain on Han Shu's body. What did this mean? It meant that Han Shu's strength was more than a realm higher than that of the 2 high gods. Only an expert like his father who had attained late-stage high god strength could so effortlessly kill 2 early-stage high god experts. So, the rumors were true. Portlam's face was filled with bitterness. He suddenly realized that compared to Han Shu, he, the so-called genius of the Batchelder family of the City of Wraiths, was not even worth mentioning. Sometimes you have to accept your fate. Han Shu wore a faint smile on his face as he unhurriedly walked to Portlam. He mercilessly attacked with his giant hand of the void. An invisible energy as heavy as Mount Tai landed on Portlam's body. Crisp sounds of bones breaking could be heard. Portlam's spine and leg bones were bent abnormally. His entire body was crushed by the enormous force and exploded. Those who seek revenge must be prepared to be killed. Han Shu had never been a soft-hearted person when it came to his enemies. When Portlam dared to plot against Phoebe, Emily, and the other ladies, his fate was sealed. Even if Portlam did not come looking for him, Han Shu would have sent someone to kill him when he recalled the incident. Han Shu understood that if a person like Portlam was not killed, he would sooner or later become a scourge to the Han family. Given Han Shu's strength, he was not afraid of the vengeance of a character like Portlam. However, at present, Phoebe, Emily, and the others did not have the strength to protect themselves. If a character like Portlam wanted to take revenge at all costs, the power he could muster would be terrifying. After keeping Portlam's divine soul, Han Shu swept a glance at the house of Batchelder divine guards who were trembling in fear. He calmly said, "You should all know who I am. Send a message to your patriarch. Tell him that I am going to Witherbone City. If he wants revenge, he can come." Those House of Batchelder divine guards abruptly took a step back after hearing Han Shu's words. They kept a safe distance from Han Shu as though they were afraid that Han Shu would attack them. The city gate was quickly opened before Han Shu. The divine guards who were in charge of entering and exiting the city tactfully made way for Han Shu. They watched as Han Shu swaggered out of the City of Wraiths. Chapter 896. At the Kiran residence in Witherbone City. The patriarch of the Kiran family was sitting in a splendid meeting hall. He was carefully reading the scroll that Emily had handed to him. Balins and Statholm were standing beside Emily. Sanguiner, Gilbert, and Phoebe, who were hot-tempered members of the Han family, naturally couldn't be present. Otherwise, they might bring disaster to the Han family. According to their agreement, Emily took out a demonic combat formation training manual that Balins, Sanguiner, and Gilbert had prepared and handed it to Sha-Tio. After hearing Degassi's message, Emily and the others knew that if the Han family didn't give Sha-Tio some benefits, Sha-Tio and those ambitious fellows of Witherbone City might kill the Han family members and obtain the demonic combat formation training manual from the souls of the dead. Obviously, that wasn't what Emily and the others wanted to see. Emily took a demonic combat formation training manual from Balins and handed it over to Sha-Tio. After waiting for such a long time and exerting all kinds of pressure, Sha-Tio had finally obtained a scroll. Naturally, he was in a good mood today. However, after reading through the contents of the scroll, Sha-Tio's smiling face gradually turned gloomy. He casually tossed the scroll that contained the demonic combat formation training manual of the Han family's demonic combat formation. Under the control of a strange force, the scroll formed into the shape of a palm and slammed into Balins' cheek. "Is the Han family trying to fool me? What was the use of these scribbles? Ha! Can they really bring out the full strength of a team with just some special footwork and positioning techniques? What a joke!" Sha-Tio's face darkened as he glared at Emily and the others. He took a deep breath and coldly groaned. "The Kiran family has expressed our sincerity. Not only are we willing to accept the Han family, but we are also willing to pay 1,000,000 black crystal coins for the demonic combat formation training manual. Yet you are giving me these damn things? The scroll slammed into Balan's cheek. It was obvious that Shatiyo had done it on purpose to humiliate Balans and the Han family. From the moment Shatiyo saw Balans, he had been annoyed by the faint murderous aura emanating from Balans. Unlike Emily and Stratholme, Balans was not respectful to Shatiyo. He was excessively calm and indifferent. The more Shatiyo looked at Balans, the more annoyed he became. When he realized that the scroll was just a bluff, he immediately slapped Balans's face to test Balans's reaction. If it were any other person who had been humiliated by Shatiyo in such a manner, no matter how good-tempered they were, they would not have been able to endure it. However, Balans's reaction was beyond Shatiyo's expectation. He did not react at all. There was not the slightest emotion, anger, or humiliation on his face. It was as if Shatiyo's humiliation did not affect him at all. It was as if he was just an outsider. His heart was as tranquil as still water. Holding the scroll, Balans explained in a calm voice. The steps and positions recorded on this scroll are indeed the correct way to train the Han family guards. If you don't believe me, you can find 3 guards from your house of Kiran and let them familiarize themselves with the steps and positions. Let them try it with the other 3 guards. Emily and Stratholme broke out in a cold sweat. They knew that Balans was not a kind-hearted man. He was even more vicious than Sanguinaire and Gilbert when it came to killing. In their eyes, Balans would not be able to restrain his killing intent after being humiliated by Shatiyo. He would attack Shatiyo recklessly. They knew that Shatiyo wanted Balans to do the same. If Balans lost control of his killing intent, he would be killed on the spot. Other than Shatiyo, the patriarch of the House of Kiran, there were also other members of the House of Kiran. 5 high gods stood side by side and stared coldly at Balans. They were waiting for him to make a move so that they could kill him. It seemed that Shatiyo did not expect that Balans would be able to endure such humiliation. After hesitating for a moment, Shatiyo waved his hand and impatiently said, "Leave the scroll and all of you can leave. If our House of Kiran guards fail to improve after practicing this technique of yours, I will make you pay for it." Balans nodded indifferently. Without saying a word, he turned around and walked out of the room. It seemed that he did not take Shatiyo's humiliation or the threats from the experts of the House of Kiran at all. Stratholme and Emily exchanged glances with each other. They courteously bade Shatiyo farewell and left the meeting hall after Balans. "Patriarch, it is terrifying that he could endure to such an extent. I've observed him very carefully. He didn't get angry from the beginning to the end. For a person to be able to control his emotions to such an extent, even if he doesn't have sufficient strength, he will definitely be a great threat," shouted a high god beside Balans with a solemn face as soon as he left. "Such a person is either a fool or the most terrifying enemy. A person who is able to bend and yield to such an extent is definitely not someone to be trifled with. Patriarch, we cannot allow him to live," advised another high god who was also apprehensive. All of them could see how terrifying Balans was. It was not because of Balans's current strength, but because of his temperament. They didn't think they would be able to put up with such indifference and forbearance. That was why they felt threatened by Balans. Having such a person in the Kiran family was akin to having a venomous snake lurking under the bed. It made them feel deeply uneasy. Shatiyo was no fool. He could see how formidable Balans was. With a dark face, Shatiyo shouted, "Of course I know this guy isn't easy to deal with. But I can't find an excuse to attack him since he has been so patient. Besides, we need to see if the scrolls they gave us are really useful. Let's spare his life for now. In any case, he won't be able to escape from our House of Kiran. After we have emptied them of everything they have, there is no need to spare his life. Patriarch, why go through so much trouble? Why don't we just kill them and extract the memories from their souls?" asked one of the high gods in a puzzled manner. Shatiyo bunched his brows and replied impatiently, "It's not that easy. Not only does extracting the memories from the soul consume a lot of divine energy, It also doesn't guarantee that we will be able to extract all of the memories from the target. The soul is the most complex and mysterious substance. No one can guarantee that they have a complete understanding of the soul. When a person dies, the soul's memories will slowly disappear. Even if we can extract the memories, we can only extract a portion of the memories. It's not that easy. Shatio waved his hand and said, "Take the scrolls and have the guards practice them. I want to know the results as soon as possible." "Understood, Patriarch," replied the high gods simultaneously before they bowed and left. Statholm, Emily, and Balans finally returned to their temporary residence in the bone refinement field. Emily and Statholm heaved a sigh of relief. They looked at the expressionless Balans. Emily put on a wry smile and shook her head. She said as though a heavy burden had been lifted from her shoulders, thank goodness, Shatio did it on purpose to provoke you. I was worried that you wouldn't be able to take it." Statholm wore a look of admiration. He sighed and said angrily, "If we have the chance, we will skin Shatio alive." "What happened?" Sanguiner and Gilbert asked at the same time. Among the Han family members, Sanguiner, Gilbert, and Balans were the closest to each other. From the tone of Statholm and Emily, they could guess that something must have happened to Balans. Gilbert asked, "What happened, old man?" "Shatio has gone too far." Statholm, who had always been rational, couldn't hold himself back this time. He narrated everything that had happened with a cold face. After listening to Statholm's narration, Sanguiner didn't say a word. He rushed outside with red eyes. It seemed that he was ready to fight to the death. Gilbert let out a furious roar and shouted like a madman, "Damn it! They've gone too far! I'm going to fight them! Both of you, come back here!" shouted Statholm, Emily, and Mike Cotton. They knew that once Sanguiner and Gilbert walked out of this place, a bloody battle would be unavoidable. All the members of the Han family would be implicated and die tragically in the Kieran residence. Gilbert and Sanguiner were the most outstanding members of the Han family. However, they were only close to Balans. Even Statholm, Phoebe, and the others could not restrain them. This time, the two of them were truly enraged. They ignored Phoebe and the others and charged out with red eyes. "You two can continue to be cowards. I'm going to fight them. It's none of your business," roared Gilbert. His face was sullen as if the one being insulted by Shatio was not Balans but him. Phoebe, Emily, Statholm, and the others shuddered at the sight of the two going berserk, not knowing what to do. "Come back here!" Balans furrowed his brows and suddenly shouted, "Senior brother has ordered you to listen to me when he's not around." Balans glanced at Sanguiner and Gilbert. His eyes were overflowing with gratitude. He knew that Sanguiner and Gilbert were angry because of him. The three of them often hung out and competed with each other. Unknowingly, their relationship had deepened. Balans's cold heart suddenly felt warm. But... Sanguiner and Gilbert looked at Balans anxiously. "We must avenge them." Balans looked at the two of them and said calmly, "But not now. You cannot sacrifice the lives of all the members of the Han family for a moment of impulse." Sanguiner and Gilbert looked at the indifferent Balans. After a long while, they sighed and gave up on the idea of charging out. Chapter 897. In the Kieran Gymnasium, 3 divine guards of the House of Kieran were practicing the footwork and positioning of the scrolls given to them by the Han family. Their movements were agile and nimble. They weaved in and out of the gymnasium in a very small space. However, due to the precision of their footwork and positioning, they did not collide with each other. Shatio was sitting on a chair made of bone and observing the 3 divine guards of the Kieran family with great interest. He asked a high god who was in charge of training the divine guards, "Are they familiar with the technique? I have trained them according to the footwork and positioning of the scrolls for 3 days. Although their speed is a little slower than expected, it should be somewhat effective," replied the high god solemnly. Shatio nodded and instructed, In that case, let's see how effective it is. Shatio gestured with his hand and gestured for 3 of his family's divine guards to step forward and fight against the 3 divine guards. At Shatio's signal, the 3 guards smiled and walked toward the 3 guards who were practicing the Tridemon formation. In their opinion, the 3 guards' training was useless. Many members of the Kiran family didn't think that the training method provided by the House of Han would be effective. Both the divine guards who had practiced the demonic combat formation of the Han family, and the divine guards who were fighting under Shatio's instruction were late-stage mid-gods. Let's begin. Let's see if this training is effective. If it doesn't, I will teach those Han family a lesson, shouted Shatio when he saw that the 2 parties were getting closer to each other. In front of Shatio, both parties were using close-range attacks. The 3 divine guards who had practiced demonic formation stood in a triangle formation with their backs facing each other. The 3 of them moved at the same speed and kept the same distance from each other. The other 3 divine guards who had not practiced demonic combat formations swarmed towards the 3 divine guards from 3 different directions with relaxed smiles on their faces. They joined forces to attack the 3 divine guards who were constantly moving. Then, something strange happened. The 3 attackers attacked at the same time, but 2 of them hit nothing but air. Only one of them attacked one of the wanderers, but before he could be happy, the 3 wanderers suddenly stopped and attacked together, directly blasting him away. As they were divine guards of the House of Kiran and the battle was merely a friendly match, they did not use their full strength. The divine guard who was blasted away immediately regained his combat strength, and immediately charged at Han Shuo and Han Shuo. From his point of view, the previous attack was just an oversight. This time, the 3 of them were even more cautious. After another wave of attacks, the 2 of them missed, and one of them was sent flying again. Once again, he was sent flying. Again and again, the 3 attackers were sent flying again and again. Not a single wave of attacks landed on the 3 guards who had practiced the demonic formation. In the beginning, the onlookers from the Kiran family were all laughing and joking around. Gradually, everyone's expression became serious. No one sneered anymore. Everyone was more serious than the last. Shatio, the patriarch of the Kiran family, who had been lazing around, was now sitting upright and still. His eyes were sparkling with excitement as he carefully observed the battle between the 2 parties. He dared not make the slightest mistake. After a long while, Shatio took a deep breath and said, "That's enough, let's stop." Shatio turned to look at the higher-ups of his family clan and asked, "What do you think?" "Miraculous! Absolutely miraculous!" One of the experts took a deep breath. His eyes gradually lit up as he said, "The Han family is indeed something. They have only practiced for 3 days and they have already displayed such terrifying strength. They will surely become even more powerful once they get used to it. Patriarch, it seems that we must obtain all the secrets of the Han family. If we can obtain all the secrets of the Han family, the overall strength of our House of Kiran and Witherbone City will increase by several times," another expert said in a deep voice. Shatio nodded and said, "That's right. No matter what method we use, we must obtain the secrets of the Han family. One of our Han family guards mysteriously disappeared last night." Stratholm the old monster had a grave look on his face as he said to Emily, "After arriving here, I've instructed them not to leave this place without our orders. They would never disobey our orders. This is a little strange." Emily knew that none of the guards of the Han family dared to disobey her orders. From the day they entered the Han family, their first lesson was loyalty and absolute obedience to the Han family's orders. This was Witherbone City, and the situation was not favorable to the Han family. Logically speaking, the guards of the Han family would never leave without permission. "Ask them carefully. Search the areas where we can move around. See if we can find them," said Emily. She had a bad premonition. "Before I came to see you, I've done a thorough search. I've searched all the places that should be searched. He's definitely not here," Stratholm said with a bitter smile. He hesitated for a moment, and suddenly asked, "Could it be?" Emily obviously knew what Stadholm was trying to say. This was the Kiran residence, and the Han family's territory was limited. The Han family would never attack the people around them. Therefore, the disappearance of the guards was most likely the work of the Kiran family. Keep this matter under wraps for the time being. Keep it under wraps for as long as possible, said Emily solemnly. I don't want this matter to cause panic to the other guards of the Han family. Sanguinaire and Gilbert are impulsive people. It was not easy to keep the matter of Balance under wraps. If they learn about this matter, it may cause unforeseen consequences to the Han family. After hearing Emily's words, Stadholm understood that she had already made up her mind. At this point, he knew that he could only continue to endure. Without sufficient strength, struggling would only lead to his death. I understand. Stadholm nodded with great difficulty as he endured the pain in his heart. Sigh. It's all my fault. If I didn't discuss with Phoebe about coming to the Death Dominion, so many things wouldn't have happened. If I had known this would happen, I would have gone to the Space Dominion from the very beginning, said Emily as she looked at Stadholm, who was suppressing the pain in his heart. She let out a sigh and blamed herself. You don't have to blame yourself. At least we are still alive. Stadholm could not bear to say anything more. He knew that Emily, Phoebe, and the other women had to bear more pain than he did. He sighed softly and shook his head as he left Emily's side. The Kiran residence. In the underground prison that was protected by layers of barriers. The body of the Han family guard was pierced by iron chains. His chest was rotting due to the fire. His body exuded a faint stench. Some strange insects were gnawing at his body bit by bit while chirping merrily. After a night of torture, the Han family guard no longer looked like a human. His face was numb, and his eyes were filled with despair and helplessness. Sha-Ti-O walked out of the prison with a frown. He cast a disgusted glance at the dying Han family guard and asked impatiently, I have given you one night. Have you still not gotten anything out of him? The gloomy torture expert had a helpless look on his face. He shook his head with a wry smile and said, Patriarch, I've seen too many ruthless people, but this is the first time I've seen someone who isn't afraid of any torture tools. I've used dozens of torture tools in one night, but he didn't make a sound. Trash. Sha-Ti-O shouted coldly. If you can't get him, I will have to waste my divine energy on his soul. I have given you so many black crystal coins every year to support you, but you can't do anything at the critical moment. You all are trash. Brother-in-law. I have tried my best, but not only did that guy refuse to tell me, he even bit his own tongue off. I really don't know what to do. The torture expert immediately changed the way he addressed Sha-Ti-O from patriarch to brother-in-law. It seemed that he had another relationship with Sha-Ti-O. What? He bit his own tongue off. It wasn't that Sha-Ti-O had never seen such ruthless people, but it was rather terrifying that any random guard of the Han family could go this far. Sha-Ti-O started to fear the Han family. This was just an ordinary guard of the Han family. His strength was only at the mid-stage mid-god realm. In the Han family, he was nothing more than cannon fodder. But this one person was even more determined than the most tenacious demon god, and could even be so cruel to himself. If this group of people were strong enough, Sha-Ti-O could not imagine who could stop them. It seems that I have to change my mind. Whether or not the Han family hand over everything in the end, they must die. This family is too terrifying. Sha-Ti-O made up his mind. He impatiently gestured for the torture expert to leave. After everyone left the prison, Sha-Ti-O took a step forward and pressed his hand on the dying guard's body. A ball of misty green radiance covered the guard's head and stirred in his mind, extracting some memories from the deepest part of his divine soul. After a while, Sha-Ti-O withdrew from the prison. The Han family guard was bleeding from all 7 of his facial orifices. Sha-Ti-O walked out of the prison with a grave face and instructed the high gods. Informed the Han family to hand over all the demonic combat formation training methods within 3 days. I will give you 3 days. Patriarch, did you get some useful memories? Asked one of the high gods. The Han family is much more terrifying than we imagined, replied a high god. Shatio nodded. From the guard's memory, he learned that Han Shuo had killed Larixin and several other high gods at Soaring Cloud Mountain Range. He also learned that Han Shuo had turned Hushvale City upside down and defeated City Lord Hafs. Shatio started to feel a little afraid. Understood, replied the high gods immediately. They started looking for Degasi to issue an ultimatum to the Han family. On that night, Han Shuo finally entered the territory of Witherbone City. Given his speed, he would arrive at Witherbone City in half a day. Chapter 898. 3 days. The House of Kirin had only given them 3 days. Degasi had conveyed the House of Kirin's message clearly. If the Han family did not reveal all the remaining secrets in 3 days, the Han family would be annihilated. Emily, Phoebe, Statholm, Balans, Sanguiner, Gilbert, and the rest of the Han family gathered together. Their faces were gloomy. They did not know how to deal with the situation. By now, Statholm knew that the Kirin family was behind the disappearance of the Han family's guard. Otherwise, Shatio would not have known how many demonic formations the Han family had concealed. Emily and Statholm exchanged a look. They knew that there was no need to hide the truth any longer. Statholm explained the disappearance of the guard to them. He then said solemnly, "It seems that Shatio and his men must have learned some of the secrets of the Han family through that guard. Otherwise, they would not have waited for a month and given us 3 days to reveal all the secrets. Those guards have been personally trained by me. I'm absolutely confident that they won't reveal the truth." Balans muttered to himself for a moment before replying with certainty. All the guards of the Han family had gone through many trials before they joined the Han family. After they joined the Han family, they had gone through all kinds of cruel training methods. Every one of them had become indifferent to their own lives. Not only to others, but to themselves as well. The guards who had been trained by Balans had even experienced torture. He firmly believed that those guards would not betray the Han family. In fact, he was right. That ordinary guard of the Han family did not reveal a single word. He was so determined that he even bit his own tongue off. Shatio cultivates the energy of death. The energy of death is more familiar with the soul than we expected. He is able to extract some memories from the soul. Fanny, who also cultivated the energy of death, explained in a sorrowful tone. I believe that the guards of the Han family are loyal to us. However, the soul's memories do not dissipate immediately after death. It is not difficult for Shatio to extract some memories from the soul. Everyone immediately understood after hearing Fanny's words. It looks like we can't delay any longer. If Shatio has learned the secrets of the Han family from that guard's soul, he will not let us go. No matter what we do, we will be faced with a dead end. Emily sighed. Her face was filled with helplessness and despair. Emily, who had been persevering all this time, suddenly felt that there was no hope left. Under such circumstances, Balans still wore an indifferent expression as if he had no regard for life. He took in the expressions on the faces of the Han family members. Balans said decisively, "Let's do it tonight. We will kill as many as we can. There is no need to wait any longer." Balans had been calm all this time. He had constantly stopped Sanguiner and Gilbert from acting recklessly. He had carried out Statholm and Emily's plan. He had tolerated Shatio's insults. However, it turned out that he was the first one to advocate for a fight to the death. Sanguiner, Gilbert, and the rest of the impulsive warriors who had been ready to kill for a long time had a murderous glint in their eyes when they heard Balans's words. They had listened to Balans even after Han Shuo had left because they knew that Balans was calmer and more decisive than anyone else. When the time came, he would be the first to strike. Nodding her head, Emily's voice was faint, as if she was not afraid of death. "Let's do it tonight. We will inflict the greatest casualties on the Kieran family with all our might. Even if the Han family is annihilated, we will not let the Kieran family get away with it." Emily swept her gaze across the crowd. She suddenly smiled and said, "We will not die in vain. Besides, Brian will avenge us in the future. I am sure that those who participated in the massacre in Witherbone City will not escape from Brian's pursuit. Everyone, disperse and take a rest. We will regroup before dawn. We will kill every member of the Kieran family and destroy everything that we can." Having decided to fight to the death, Balins was the one who gave the orders. As the instructor who had trained all the Han family guards, his ability in this aspect was unquestionable. No one said anything. All the core members of the Han family quietly dispersed and waited for dawn to arrive. After Balins left, he immediately summoned the captains of the Han family guards and carried out his orders. While the Han family was silently preparing for battle, Sha-Ti-O of the Kieran family arrived at the City Lord's mansion in Witherbone City. He found City Lord Hill and told him some of the memories he obtained from the soul of the Han family guard. Hill had been impatiently listening to Sha-Ti-O's narration. But when he heard that Han Sho had killed Larixin, Field, and the other high gods at Soaring Cloud Mountain Range and forced Larixin and Field to flee for their lives, the impatience on Hill's face immediately vanished. He said to Sha-Ti-O in a solemn face, "Tell me everything you know." As a matter of fact, Sha-Ti-O and Hill had heard a lot of rumors about the Han family in the City of Shadows. However, rumors were just rumors, and neither Hill nor Sha-Ti-O were the kind of people who believed in rumors. Besides, some of the real secrets were only known to the Han family guards. Therefore, Sha-Ti-O and Hill did not take Han Shaw seriously. They could choose not to believe in rumors, but they had no doubts about the memory fragments in the Han family guard's soul. When they learned about Han Shaw's unknown motives, Sha-Ti-O and Hill exchanged glances with each other. They could see the heaviness in each other's eyes. Hill took a deep breath and clenched the bone armrest unnaturally. In a deep voice, he said, "The Han family cannot be allowed to live. Not only must we kill every member of the Han family, we must also think of a way to shift the blame onto someone else. Damn it, I didn't expect that guy to be even more terrifying than the rumors say. If he finds out the truth when he arrives at Witherbone City, it will be a huge blow to our city. I have given them 3 days. I will make preparations in the next 3 days. Those fellows from other dominions will be arriving soon. Their target is the Han family. As long as we have a good plan, it's not impossible to frame those scapegoats for the Han family's tragedy." Sha-Ti-O explained his plan in a gloomy voice. "Good, you have done well. After the Han family is gone, I will reward you handsomely," said Hill in a gratified smile. He was very satisfied with Sha-Ti-O's plan. Suddenly, Hill bunched his brows and said to a divine guard who was rushing over, "What's the hurry? City Lord, the Kieran residence is on fire. There are sounds of fighting coming from inside. It's a mess." The divine guard took a glance at Sha-Ti-O and hastily reported. After being praised by Sha-Ti-O, the humble smile on Sha-Ti-O's face suddenly froze. A gurgling sound came from his throat as he abruptly rose to his feet. His smiling face magically turned ashen as he hastily shouted, "How dare they! How dare they! I'm going to make them die without an intact corpse." Sha-Ti-O didn't bother to be courteous with Hill. Without even bidding farewell to him, he dashed towards the Kieran residence in a hurry. Hill also realized what had happened to the Kieran residence. He knew that Sha-Ti-O was anxious, but he did not blame Sha-Ti-O for his rudeness. He immediately stood up from his bone throne and followed behind Sha-Ti-O. The two of them galloped through Hill's mansion. Those who did not know what was going on might have thought that the two were having an argument, and that one was chasing after the other. When Hill's divine guards saw that Sha-Ti-O was chasing after them, they took out their weapons and pointed them at Sha-Ti-O. It seemed that they had misunderstood something and decided to help Hill stop Sha-Ti-O. "Stop! Let them through!" shouted Hill. He knew what they were thinking the moment he raised his weapons. His loud voice resounded through the entire mansion. At the same time, an extravagant outsider arrived at one of the city gates of Witherbone City. Han Sho casually tossed a handful of black crystal coins to the Divine Guards and entered Witherbone City in a flash before the Divine Guards could inspect his divine essences. The Divine Guards who were guarding the city gates were about to stop Han Sho. But when they saw the pile of black crystal coins on the ground, they panicked and started picking them up. After entering Witherbone City, Han Sho casually grabbed a mid-god and stuffed a handful of black crystal coins into his hand. He hastily asked, "How do I get to the Kiran residence?" The mid-god who was grabbed by Han Sho from afar was about to start a fight with Han Sho when he suddenly felt something heavy in his hand. He lowered his head and saw a big smile on his face. He pointed in a direction and smilingly said to Han Sho, "Head east." As soon as he finished those words, Han Sho's figure blurred and vanished like a ghost. If it weren't for the large handful of black crystal coins in his hand, he would have thought that everything that happened was just an illusion. Han Sho's speed was just too fast for him to keep track of. At the Kiran residence, due to the House of Han's surprise attack and the fact that they attacked with full force from the very beginning, they managed to destroy half of the Kiran residence's buildings and killed many of the Kiran residence's guards who were cultivating. As the high gods had yet to finish their preparations, the House of Han's guards were unstoppable. They formed into small groups and started slaughtering the House of Kiran's guards in a flurry. They were ruthlessly and mercilessly slaughtered all of the guards of the House of Kiran. In less than 15 minutes, more than 100 members of the Kiran family died to the frenzied slaughter of the House of Han. Only a few of the House of Han's guards were seriously injured by the House of Han's fearless suicidal tactics. However, the good times didn't last long. When the high gods of the House of Kiran gathered their forces and joined forces with Hill's divine guards stationed in the vicinity to launch a counterattack, the House of Han began to suffer defeat after defeat due to the sheer number of high gods. When the patriarch of the Kiran family, Sha Tio, arrived at the Kiran residence with a furious look on his face, and the city lord of Witherbone City following behind him, the hearts of all the members of the House of Han sank to the bottom of the valley. They knew that they had finally reached the end of the road. Chapter 899. The moment Sha Tio and Hill appeared, the Han family's struggle had come to an end. Sha Tio and Hill both possessed late-stage high god strength. The House of Kiran had 5 other high gods at different stages of their cultivation. In addition to the 2 chiefs of divine guards stationed outside the city, there were nearly 1,000 divine guards and more were arriving from all over Witherbone City. This was not an advantage that could be made up for with just a clever formation. Sha Tio was standing inside the Kiran residence. When he saw the Han family's frantic struggle that had turned the buildings into ruins and the corpses that littered the ground, he was so furious that he wished he could skin every member of the Han family alive. Although Hill had departed after Sha Tio, he had arrived at the same time as Witherbone City. When he saw the great losses suffered by the Kiran family and the Han family guards that were gradually gathering together to form a defensive formation, not only did he not feel sad for the Kiran family, but he was secretly delighted. In Witherbone City, the Kiran family was the only family clan that could threaten his position as the city lord. But as Sha Tio had always been loyal and devoted to him, he had never found an opportunity to weaken the Kiran family. Hill had witnessed the Kiran family's misfortune, and it was exactly what he wanted. On the other hand, Hill could tell from the Kiran family's fighting prowess that the Han family possessed. Now that the Han family was surrounded, Hill believed that everything the Han family owned would fall into their hands. He was excited when he thought about how Witherbone City would not only be able to obtain the formulas of the Han family's celestial pearl pharmacy but also the mysterious and unfathomable combination method. Refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. "You're the ones who took the initiative to court death," said Sha Tio in an ashen face. His sinister eyes were sizing up Balans, Statholm, Emily, and the others who were leading the Han family. He looked as though he wanted to tear every member of the Han family to shreds and devour them. You are the ones who have gone too far, said Emily through gritted teeth. She put on a grief-stricken face and said, Since we are going to die either way, we have to pay the price. Good. 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 Shatio raised his head to the sky and roared. His face was filled with killing intent. He then waved his hand and commanded, Kill them all. Leave no one alive. The divine guards and high gods surrounding the Han family had temporarily quieted down after Shatio and Hill arrived. Now that Shatio had given the order, they no longer hesitated. Shatio was aware of the House of Han's miraculous demonic formations. From the very beginning, he did not plan to use the House of Kiran guards to attack the House of Han. Instead, he planned to take advantage of the large number of high gods he had. With a few high gods leading the charge, the House of Kiran guards would attack from a safe distance. Under Shatio and Hill's orders, 5 high gods of the House of Kiran and 2 high gods under Hill charged at the Han family army from 7 different directions. At the same time, the divine guards of Witherbone City launched all kinds of strange attacks at the Han family. The Han family had no choice but to stick together as one because they knew that the entire Witherbone City was their enemy. The Kiran residence was surrounded by divine guards from all over the city. It would be a fool's dream for them to charge out of the encirclement. Rather than being killed one by one, they might as well stick together and wear down the enemy as much as they could. The Han family knew that their advantage lay in their teamwork. If they were to split up and attack, they would lose the advantage that the Han family relied on to survive. They would only end up with their heads separated from their bodies. They wouldn't even be able to cause any damage to the enemy. All the members of the Han family had gathered in different positions. Their faces were calm, and their hearts were filled with the passion of fighting to the death. They were coldly dealing with the situation of certain death. The 7 high gods charged at the Han family from 7 different directions. The energy of death formed a canopy of death aura that enveloped the entire Kiran residence. The Kiran residence's energy towers that had yet to be destroyed burst out with dazzling radiance. An enormous pressure descended like a dark cloud and slowly approached the Han family army. The domains of divinity of the 7 high gods spread out and gathered all sorts of elemental energies in the vicinity. They formed streams of bizarre air currents that spread towards the House of Han. The 7 high gods approached the House of Han amidst the 7 streams of air currents and began the slaughter. Hundreds and thousands of different kinds of energy flew towards Han Sho with ear-piercing whistles. Most of the attacks were of different colors. They were all smooth and sharp bone spurs. These bone spurs were all extraordinary. They were the best bones forged in the bone refinery, polished until they shone brilliantly. They even contained a dense aura of death. The members of the Han family wore calm faces. Not a single one of them screamed or panicked when they saw the 7 high gods and the hundreds and thousands of attacks descending on them. The Han family members were breathing in perfect harmony. Not a single one of them was short of breath. Although they were enemies, the divine guards of Witherbone City were amazed by the bearing and demeanor of the members of the Han family army. Hill, the city lord of Witherbone City, was the most astonished. As the lord of a city, he was quite good at training his subordinates. Those who were in charge of defense focused all their energy on defending against the enemy, while those who were in charge of offense ignored the scalp-numbing attacks coming from above and focused all their attention on attacking. From the beginning to the end, the Han family army stood their ground. Not a single one of them moved in panic. Shatio, tell your men to be careful. Don't kill the few at the front, said Hill as he looked at the Han family army in admiration. He was very impressed by the Han family who could train their divine guards to such a level. Shatio knew that when a person dies, the moment his soul energy dissipates from the world, the memories of his soul would gradually disappear. When the energy of his soul is completely exhausted, all his memories would disappear without a trace. Not even the energy of death could restore his memories. Hill had done so because he did not want the important members of the Han family to die first. He needed the precious memories of the Han family members. Understood. Shatio nodded. He gradually recovered from his overwhelming rage. Ever since he saw the Kirin family's losses at the hands of the Han family, he had lost control of himself. Therefore, he had neglected this point during the attack and had nearly forgotten their main objective. Shatio took a deep breath. He raised his head to the sky and let out a shrill roar. Then, he made a hand gesture to the high gods. Those high gods were veterans of the Kirin family. They knew what to do as soon as they saw Shatio's hand gesture. Their attacks became much more controlled. Most of their attacks landed on the unimportant Han family guards. The 7 high gods who had caused the most casualties to the Han family were the 7 high gods. The 7 high gods had come to a tacit agreement. All the Han family members who had died became the guards around them, while the important members of the Han family remained unharmed. Statholm and the others exchanged glances with each other. They could see the despair in each other's eyes. Statholm and Emily were both intelligent people. They knew what those fellows in Witherbone City were up to. Balins took a glance at Statholm and Emily and accurately guessed what they were thinking. He coldly shouted, "Don't do anything stupid. With the 3 of us here, you don't have to kill yourselves. Even if you die in the end, they won't be able to extract any useful information from your souls." Balins could tell that Statholm and Emily wanted to kill themselves so that Shatio and the others wouldn't get what they wanted. "Brian, I will never see you again," muttered Emily in a voice that only she could hear. It was as though the heavens had heard Emily's call. At this moment, an earth-shattering roar resounded in Witherbone City. A ruthless aura that could destroy everything enveloped the entire Witherbone City. Chapter 900. When the Han family members heard the roar, their despairing faces suddenly blossomed with a different kind of radiance, as though they had just seen rain after a long drought. "Master, it's Master's voice!" Gilbert was trembling with excitement. Every member of the Han family was looking forward to Han Shaw's arrival in this hopeless situation. However, they knew that it was almost impossible. It was as though God had heard their cheers and sent Han Shaw to them at this most critical moment. Gilbert, Sanguiner, Balins, Emily, and Statholm were all very familiar with Han Shaw's voice and the violent aura that enveloped the entire Witherbone City. They didn't need Gilbert's reminder to know that it was Han Shaw. "Master has become even more powerful!" Sandwich closed his eyes and sensed the apocalyptic aura that was gradually approaching from a distance. He took a deep breath and shouted excitedly, "Hold on! Hold on! As long as we can hold on until Brian arrives, we won't have to worry about anything else!" Because of her excitement, her cheeks and neck were flushed red. She subconsciously waved her fists, as if she wanted to use this action to stabilize her rapidly beating heart. In the hearts of every house of Han Guard, Patriarch Han Shaw was an invincible existence. They were no stranger to Han Shaw's voice and aura. From that terrifying pressure that could topple mountains and overturn seas, they could sense a familiar aura from their training. All the members of the Han family were excited at this moment. Some of the Han family members, who were originally prepared to die in silence, couldn't help but cheer out loud to express their uncontrollable joy. The enormous pressure that was rapidly approaching made all the experts of Witherbone City feel a sense of crisis. Shatio and Hill, 2 of the most powerful existences in Witherbone City, were shocked. They stared at the direction where the enormous pressure was coming from and didn't know what to say. Shatio, Hill, and the divine guards of the House of Kirin and Hill temporarily stopped attacking Han Shaw under the terrifying pressure. They stared at the ominous aura that was approaching like a dark cloud. Their faces were filled with panic and fear. They had no idea what this terrifying expert who came to Witherbone City was up to. The 2 sides that were fighting temporarily stopped their life and death struggle after this strange change. They were both silently waiting for the arrival of the peerless fiendish demon. Ear-piercing and soul-stirring howls were heard from afar. The earth-shattering howls resounded throughout the entire Witherbone City. All the gods, whether they were sleeping or cultivating in secret underground chambers, were awakened by the howls. Their faces were filled with shock as they looked in a certain direction in bewilderment. Everyone in Witherbone City could sense the wrath of the peerless demon. Most of the people in Witherbone City did not know what had happened to the Han family in the city. They followed the direction of the howls and slowly approached the Kieran residence. They wanted to see what was going on in Witherbone City. "Who is it? Who is it?" Hill finally started to panic. He suddenly discovered that even though he had many divine guards around him, they would not be able to withstand a single blow from the fierce demon. This made Hill, the city lord of Witherbone City, truly afraid. I don't know." Sha-Tio's attention was also attracted by the powerful energy. He did not notice the strange expressions on the faces of the Han family members. Sha-Tio was also flustered by Hill's question. He had no idea what was going on. The world was filled with a ruthless, cruel, and chilling aura of slaughter. The terrifying aura was like a formless wave that spread from a certain point to every corner of Witherbone City. All the experts in Witherbone City felt terrified. The murderous aura that was spreading in all directions was not the same. Hill and Sha-Tio could clearly feel that they were bearing the brunt of the pressure. Under this pressure, Hill and Sha-Tio gradually realized that they were the target of the enemy. After confirming this fact, Hill and Sha-Tio felt a chill run down their spines. For some reason, they felt as though they were witnessing their own deaths. The feeling was so abrupt that it made them realize that they had absolutely no confidence in surviving under such terrifying pressure. As the two approached their targets, the shrill howls gradually faded away. However, not only did Hill and Sha-Tio not feel relieved, they discovered that their hands and feet were ice cold. They felt as though their souls were being targeted by a ferocious beast that could devour them at any moment. The two strongest experts in Witherbone City were panic-stricken. They did not know what to do. Finally, a majestic figure came to a stop amidst the dark clouds. It was Han Shu wearing a sinister face. His eyes were glowing with malevolent light as they swept across the Witherbone City divine guards surrounding the Han family. With Han Shu's power, he was able to sense the situation of the Han family within a certain distance from the Kieran family. The Han family guards who had walked out of the 8 Desolation and Torment formation carried auras that Han Shu could recognize. When Han Shu sensed the familiar auras disappearing, he realized that the Han family guards were being slaughtered. This was absolutely not what Han Shu wanted to see. Therefore, in order to ensure that the Han family guards would not be slaughtered before he arrived at the Kieran residence, Han Shu unleashed all the energy in his body in a fit of rage. He used the rage in his heart to frighten all the gods in Witherbone City so that the Kieran family would not dare to act rashly. Han Shu's act was indeed effective. Under his terrifying energy, Hill and Sha-Tio had completely forgotten that they still had to deal with the Han family. They focused all their attention on Han Shu. Even the Witherbone City divine guards were stunned and stopped attacking the Han family. "Master! Brian! Master! Patriarch!" The Han family members shouted different greetings. When they saw that Han Shu had arrived before them, Gilbert, Sanguiner, and the others cheered excitedly. Statholm wore a gratified face as he nodded. Emily, Fanny, Lisa, and the other ladies who had been bullied by Han Shu wept tears of joy. Just a moment ago, every member of the Han family was in despair. Facing the experts of Witherbone City, any member of the Han family knew that they were in a hopeless situation. But the next moment, Han Shu's sudden arrival in Witherbone City was like an injection of life into the hearts of every member of the Han family. They knew that there was still hope for survival. Not only that, but the Han family members, who had absolute trust in Han Shu and sensed the destructive energy, knew that not only would they be able to escape from death, but they would also be able to make their enemies pay for what they had done to them. After the members of the Han family cheered, the Witherbone Divine Guards finally realized who the intruder was. Hill and Sha-Tio's hearts sank. They had no idea why the weather had suddenly turned so cold. Their hands and feet were ice cold. They stared at Han Shu in fear and opened their mouths to say something. But when they saw Han Shuo's cold face and sensed the apocalyptic aura around him, they felt as though their throats were blocked by something and they couldn't make a sound. As the most powerful high gods present, Hill and Sha Tio knew better than anyone else just how terrifying Han Shuo's strength was. They knew that they stood no chance against Han Shuo. Death was their only option. That was why they were so afraid. "It's a misunderstanding," Sha Tio said in a hoarse voice after a while. He smiled bitterly and bowed slightly. He was even more humble than when he was talking to Hill. "What happened?" Han Shuo shot a sinister glance at Sha Tio before he turned to look at Emily, Statholm, and the others behind him. "Some people want the prescriptions of our celestial pearl pharmacy and the secret to training our divine guards. They have given us 3 days. If we don't hand over the prescriptions in 3 days, the Han family will not be able to leave Witherbone City alive. Haha, in my opinion, some people have no intention of letting us live. Whether we hand over the prescriptions or not, we will not be able to leave this place alive." Statholm the old monster narrated in a soft voice while looking at Hill and Sha Tio with a spurious smile. Statholm the old monster was extremely delighted at this moment. He let out a long howl towards the sky and laughed heartily. It was as though he was venting all the grievances and resentment he had accumulated over the past few months. "Also, they secretly captured our guards and used the energy of death to obtain everything in their minds. Also, Sha Tio once insulted Balance." Emily took a step forward and recounted everything that had happened with teary eyes. It was time to settle the score. Emily took a step forward and recounted everything that had happened during this period of time with teary eyes. "Master, also, they made us stay in this shabby place. Behind us is the stinky bone refinery. Even the matrons can't stand it, and vomit every day. These bastards have made so many black crystal coins from Witherbone City with the help of our celestial pearl pharmacy's reputation. But when they saw our House of Han from the City of Shadows, they turned their backs on us and even tried to swallow us whole. God damn it, I can't believe they would do such a despicable thing." Gilbert pointed at Sha Tio and Hill's faces and cursed. He didn't seem to have any intention of stopping. Han Shuo's face grew darker and darker as Statholm, Emily, and Gilbert continued to hurl insults. Han Shuo had guessed that the Han family was not treated well in Witherbone City. But little did he know that the Han family's treatment was worse than he had imagined. If he hadn't rushed all the way to Witherbone City, he might have been the one to collect the corpses of the Han family. "It's a misunderstanding. It's really a misunderstanding." Sha Tio's body grew colder and colder as he repeated the word misunderstanding. Chapter 901. At this moment, Sha Tio was filled with remorse. For the first time in his life, he regretted what he had done to the Han family. Facing Han Shuo, an enemy that he could not defeat, Sha Tio did not know what else to say other than to explain that it was all a misunderstanding. Hill, the city lord of Witherbone City, felt his lips turning dry. His heart was pounding at an unprecedented rate. He knew that he was afraid from the bottom of his heart. He was afraid that Han Shuo, the ferocious demon, would launch a massacre on Witherbone City. Although Hill was grave when he heard Sha Tio's description of Han Shuo, he did not really take it to heart. According to Sha Tio's description, Hill roughly guessed that Han Shuo possessed late-stage high god strength. Han Shuo might be able to defeat him, but not kill him. In Hill's opinion, as long as he and Sha Tio worked together, and with the resources of Witherbone City, they should have no reason to fear Han Shuo. But little did he expect that Han Shuo would make another breakthrough in the fringe. Han Shuo, who had advanced to the Skybreak realm, had far surpassed a late-stage high god in strength. Even sovereigns like Salus and Wasis, who had been through countless battles, were no match for Han Shuo. Hill and Hill were left with no choice but to die. Misunderstanding? Han Shuo put on a smile. It was just that his smile was so cold that it made Salus and Hill's hair stand on end. "It's really just a misunderstanding. We just want to cooperate with the Han family. We have no ulterior motives. This time, it was Hill who spoke. His voice sounded agitated and nervous. Perhaps the House of Kiran has failed in certain aspects, but this is not the intention of Witherbone City. We really want to cooperate with the Han family. Even the battle this time was initiated by the Han family. I am here to resolve the dispute. I have no ulterior motives. All the divine guards of Witherbone City could see that Hill was being modest and nervous. In front of Han Shuo, he, the city lord of Witherbone City, seemed to have become a servant. He behaved very respectfully and cautiously. That's right. Not only did we bring the Han family to Witherbone City from Hofs and Larrickson, but we also treated them with great hospitality. Even though they killed so many of our guards for no apparent reason, I just wanted to know what was going on. It was all a misunderstanding, added Sha Tio hastily. Sha Tio and Hill understood that if the battle continued, they would be the first to be killed by Han Shuo. Under Han Shuo's overwhelming power, the two of them couldn't even think of resisting. They could only think of how to get Han Shuo's forgiveness. Shameless! Shouted Emily furiously. She turned to Han Shuo and said, Brian, don't listen to their nonsense. Their goal is to destroy the Han family. If you hadn't arrived in time, not a single member of the Han family would have survived. Master, there's nothing more to say. Let's kill them. Sanguiner's eyes seemed to be dripping blood. He pointed the broadsword in his hand at Sha Tio and said, We will skin this bastard alive. He has insulted Balans and the Han family. As you wish, replied Han Shuo in a low voice. Han Shuo stretched out his hand and the ominous aura around his body suddenly came down and wrapped Sha Tio. He then pulled with his left hand and sent Sha Tio flying. He landed in front of Sanguiner, Gilbert, and Balans. The ominous clouds drilled into Sha Tio's body like wisps of smoke. They wrapped Sha Tio's divine energy like the most intricate ropes. His senses were clearer than ever, but he couldn't move. In front of Han Shuo, the so-called experts like Sha Tio and Hill were powerless to fight back. With a thought, Han Shuo summoned the ominous clouds and wrapped Sha Tio up. After the wisps of smoke entered his body, he fell to the ground with a terrified look on his face. He could do nothing but wait to be slaughtered. Sha Tio, who had lost the ability to fight back, was now standing between Balans, Sanguiner, and Gilbert. The three of them were very close, and Balans had been humiliated by Sha Tio. Therefore, with his enemy in front of him, Balans was not going to be polite. He drew out the thin flying sword in his hand with an indifferent face. Gilbert and Sanguiner were about to join in, but when they saw Balans draw his sword and walk toward Hill without saying a word, they grinned hideously and looked at Sha Tio coldly. Balans was calmer than anyone else. Therefore, he could tolerate Sha Tio's insults. However, Balans wasn't without a temper. On the contrary, among the Han family, Balans was famous for his ruthlessness. Balans had never forgotten Sha Tio's insults. Sha Tio looked at the approaching man with a sword in his hand and no longer tried to explain himself. He knew that it was pointless to waste his breath. As the patriarch of the Kiran family, Sha Tio was not a man who was afraid of death. He lowered his head and remained silent. What do you want? When the high gods of the House of Kiran saw that their patriarch had been captured alive without being able to retaliate, and when they saw Balans walking towards them with his sword in his hand, they started yelling and shouting. That's right. These high gods of the House of Kiran had also sensed the aura of death from the terrifying energy emanating from Han Shuo. However, having lived in the House of Kiran for so long, they had placed their family's honor above all else. Therefore, before Sha Tio was about to be skinned alive, they decided to fight back. The five high gods exchanged glances with one another before they let out a loud roar and charged at Han Shuo. The Han family was surrounded by thousands of gods of Witherbone City. Chapter 902. In Witherbone City, in front of the Kieran family, and in front of so many gods, Shati-O, one of the most powerful figures in Witherbone City, was cruelly skinned by Balance. In just a short while, Shati-O's miserable screams had died down. His body twitched for a while and he stopped moving. Although there were many onlookers, under the terrifying pressure that Han Sho deliberately released, none of them dared to rush to their deaths. Those gods who had participated in the attack against the House of Han were trembling with fear and their eyes were flickering. The death of Shati-O had clearly excited the members of the Han family who had been humiliated for a long time. Even though they had absolute trust in Han Sho, they did not expect that Han Sho's strength had grown to such a terrifying level. Hill and the group of top-notch experts of Witherbone City could only watch. They did not dare to take a step forward. "Who else?" Han Sho looked at Emily and asked. Emily looked at the onlookers with a murderous gaze and pointed at Hill, the city lord of Witherbone City. "This man is the city lord of Witherbone City. Without his support, Shati-O would not have dared to do as he pleased." Emily had heard from Degassi that Hill had played a key role in the entire incident. Hill had played an important role from the very beginning. Without Hill's secret support, Shati-O would not have dared to openly attack the Han family in Witherbone City. When the Kieran family and the Han family established a Celestial Pearl branch in Witherbone City, Shati-O had communicated with Hill. Hill had also received a share of the profits from the Celestial Pearl branch in Witherbone City. When the news of the Han family's request for help reached Witherbone City, the ambitious Hill was not Shati-O but Shati-O. "What does that have to do with me?" Seeing that Shati-O was dead, the anger of many members of the House of Han had subsided. Hill had thought that the matter had been resolved and that he would not be implicated. He had not expected that Emily would point her finger at him. As the lord of a city, Hill shouldn't have panicked like this. However, he had sensed the unparalleled energy from Han Sho's body, and saw Shati-O being skinned and his bones pulled out in front of him. Shati-O's miserable screams that didn't sound human were still echoing in his ears. He had lost his composure. He sized Hill up and asked, "Tell me, should I trust you or my men?" "That's right, I'll trust you or my men." Hill's heart sank. He knew that there was no point in trying to explain. Judging from Han Sho's attitude towards Shati-O, he knew that Han Sho was not a soft-hearted person. Hill immediately discarded all his unrealistic fantasies and treated Han Sho as the most terrifying enemy in his life. "Brian, this is Witherbone City. I am the city lord of Witherbone City. How dare you kill me?" Hill pondered for a moment before he glared at Han Sho and shouted. The fear on his face seemed to have vanished. It was as though he had turned into a different person. As expected of the lord of a city, Hill quickly adjusted himself in a situation where there was no way out. He was no longer a yes man, but focused all his energy on dealing with Han Sho. First, he dispelled the fear he had for Han Sho. Han Sho stared blankly for a moment. He did not expect that Hill would dare to yell at him at this moment. He thought to himself, although Hill is only slightly stronger than Shati-O, he has been a city lord for a long time. However, from Han Sho's point of view, even if Hill was the city lord of Witherbone City and was surrounded by countless divine guards of Witherbone City, it would still be a piece of cake for Han Sho to kill Hill. Han Sho could not understand where Hill's confidence came from. "Oh?" Han Sho's face turned cold. He bluntly asked, "Why wouldn't I dare to kill you? Do you really think that those divine guards around you can protect you?" Hill heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Han Sho was still in the mood to ask questions. He was afraid that Han Sho would not give him the chance to explain, and would kill him like how he did to Shati-O. If that happened, Hill's eloquence would be in vain. Shati-O is just a patriarch of a family clan. He does not have the qualifications to meet the Overgod. The Overgod would not care whether he lives or dies. But I am different. I am the city lord of Witherbone City. I am the most loyal servant of the Overgod of Death. The Overgod has left a brand in my soul. If you attack me, the Overgod of Death will not let you off. Hill stared at Han Shu and hastily explained the reason he had prepared beforehand. Upon hearing those words, the members of the Han family turned pale with fright. The Witherbone divine guards around the Han family were emboldened. They thought to themselves that the City Lord was right. No matter how powerful Hill was, if he were to kill the City Lord, he would not stand a chance. The City Lord was the City Lord of Witherbone City appointed by the Overgod. If Hill were to kill the City Lord, he would definitely incur the wrath of the Overgod. The wrath of an Overgod could shake heaven and earth. No one on Elysium would dare to provoke an Overgod. "Brian, why don't we just let it go?" Emily put on a nervous face and said to Han Shu in a low voice. She was the one who asked Han Shu to kill Hill. But after hearing Hill's words, she was the first to stop Han Shu. The might of an Overgod was deeply rooted in her heart. She knew what it meant to be an Overgod. Therefore, she would rather endure the humiliation than let Han Shu become an enemy of an Overgod because of them. "Brian, don't be impulsive. Shatio is dead anyway. Just let it go," Statholm the old monster also advised. He knew very well how powerful an Overgod was. The Han family would be able to walk out of this predicament. He did not want Han Shu to be killed by an Overgod because of this matter. Unless it was an Overgod of another force, no one would dare to provoke an Overgod who possessed the quintessence and ruled over an entire divine dominion. Every member of the Han family understood this. They all tried to persuade Han Shu, hoping that Han Shu would let Hill go. "Haha, it seems that your Han family are quite sensible. Brian, I admit that you are very powerful and no one in Witherbone City is a match for you. But you should really think twice before you act. If I die, you and the Han family will not be able to walk out of the Death Dominion." Hill hastily struck while the Han family were still submissive. He hoped that Han Shu would give up on killing him. Han Shu wore a dark face as he stared at the complacent Hill. He knew that Hill was not just trying to scare him. If he really killed Hill, the Overgod of Death would very likely retaliate. A series of thoughts flashed through his mind as he weighed the pros and cons over and over again. He took a deep breath and resisted the urge to kill Hill immediately. He nodded indifferently and turned to the House of Han. "Come, let's get out of the city." Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Not just the Han family, but even the divine guards of Witherbone City and Hill himself felt as though they had just taken a trip to the gates of hell. They understood that if Han Shu were to attack Han Shu recklessly, Hill would definitely die. However, the Overgod's mark in Hill's divine soul could very well attract the Overgod of Death. The consequences would be unimaginable. "I am very sorry about what happened to the Han family in Witherbone City. It was not my intention," said Han Shu. Hill felt his entire body relax when he saw that Han Shu was leaving. He did not dare to provoke Han Shu at this moment lest Han Shu recklessly attack him. His attitude couldn't be any better. Hill waved his hand and gestured to the divine guards surrounding the place to make way for the members of the House of Han. The House of Han would be able to leave unimpeded. Han Shu did not say a word. He wore a gloomy face and led the way out of Witherbone City. Wherever he went, the Witherbone divine guards would automatically take a few steps back. It was obvious that they were very wary of Han Shu. All the members of the Han family followed closely behind Han Shu. None of them said a word as they walked out of the Kiran residence. The next morning, they arrived at a city gate of Witherbone City. It seemed that the divine guards in charge of Witherbone City had long received the news. Before the Han family arrived, they had already opened the city gate. The divine guards stood far away from the city gate and waited for the Han family to pass through. Under Han Shu's lead, the members of the Han family walked out of Witherbone City without encountering the slightest obstruction. "Sanguiner, are you really going to let that Hill go?" After half a day, when the Han family had left Witherbone City, Sanguiner finally couldn't help but ask Han Shu after hesitating for a moment. "I will send you out of the Death Dominion. You will be safe once you leave the Death Dominion," replied Han Shu. He took a deep breath and said to Emily and Statholm, After you leave the Death Dominion, head to the ethereal city of the Space Dominion and look for the City Lord McKinley. He will make arrangements for you. Brian, don't be rash. Emily's heart sank when she heard Han Sho's words. She pleaded, Forget it. Sha Tio is the one who is after us. He is dead and I don't want to take revenge. Brian, killing Hill is very likely to provoke the Overgod, exclaimed Statholm. He knew what Han Sho was trying to do. I know that it is very likely to provoke the Overgod. That is why I brought you out of Witherbone City. If I had killed Hill and the Overgod appeared, I might have been able to escape, but all of you would have died at the hands of the Witherbone City Divine Guards. As long as you are safe, I don't mind causing a ruckus in Witherbone City. Humph, Hill really thinks that I am afraid of the Overgod of Death, snorted Han Sho coldly. When Han Sho saw that the crowd still wanted to dissuade him, he waved his hand and said, All right, that's enough. I will send you out of the Death Dominion. I have made up my mind. Senior, are you confident? Ballins was still as calm as ever as he asked unhurriedly. I'm confident that I won't die. Han Sho put on a faint smile and said, That's enough. As long as I don't die, I won't be afraid of even an Overgod with the quintessence. Ballins nodded and did not say anything else. Han Sho did not explain further either. They escorted the Han family through the major cities of the Death Dominion and headed towards the fringe of the Space Dominion. Fearing that there might be more complications, the Han family hurried on with their journey. 2 months later, they exited the Death Dominion and headed towards the Space Dominion. It was at this moment that Han Sho quietly left the party and returned to the Death Dominion alone. This time, not only Hill, the City Lord of Witherbone City, but even Wallace of the Darkness Dominion was targeted by Han Sho. Han Sho had offended both the Overgod of Death and the Overgod of Darkness. Chapter 903. After the departure of the Han family, Witherbone City was bustling with activity for a period of time. Not for anything else, but for stripping the House of Kieran's assets. The House of Kieran used to be one of the most powerful families in Witherbone City. However, after the death of their patriarch, Sha-Tio, 5 high gods, and hundreds of their divine guards, the House of Kieran was reduced to a second-rate family clan. With the death of all their top experts, the House of Kieran would not be able to protect its enormous assets. Those who had been envious of the Kieran family's wealth and assets for a long time took action on the day the Han family left Witherbone City. Sha-Tio and the House of Kieran had done so much for Hill, and he should be more than willing to help them. He should prevent those jealous family clans from taking action against the Kieran family. However, the first person to take action was none other than Hill. Using the excuse that the House of Kieran had provoked an unimaginable number of enemies for Witherbone City without Hill's consent, Hill took over the Kieran family's largest territory and assets. Most of the Kieran family's assets fell into Hill's hands overnight. While the Kieran family enjoyed the meat, others would have to drink the soup. The other families, big and small, took away the remaining profits of the Kieran family. Many of those who had grudges against the House of Kieran had been afraid of Sha-Tio and the House of Kieran's power. But now, they were taking revenge on the Kieran family. They hunted down the orphans, women, and children of the Kieran family. As Sha-Tio had suffered great humiliation before his death, many of the Kieran family's divine guards felt the same. They felt that the Kieran family had been branded with the mark of humiliation. They left the House of Kieran and joined other family clans. They became murderers of the Kieran family's orphans, women, and children. In almost a single night, a major family clan that had towered over Witherbone City for 1,000 years had been wiped out. All the direct descendants of the family clan, young and old, were hunted down by their enemies. In just a few days, the ancient House of Kieran was almost wiped out. There were not many members of the Kieran family left in Witherbone City. 90% of the Kieran family members were killed in the purge. However, there was one person that no one dared to touch. Witherbone City, south of the city, inside a dilapidated divine hall, Li Wei's body was curled up into a ball. Her eyes were blank as she held an urn of ashes in her arms. Beside her, the ancient lizard king, Degasi, wore a sorrowful expression as he lovingly combed Li Wei's disheveled hair while sighing repeatedly. In a short period of 3 months, the innocent Li Wei had experienced the cruelest change in the world. She had watched as Sha Tio, who had loved her dearly, was skinned and stripped of his bones. Her brothers and sisters were mercilessly killed, and her sisters were ravaged. A great clan had collapsed in an instant. Li Wei witnessed the scenes of agony. The earth-shattering changes finally destroyed her mind. Unable to bear all of this, she became deranged. In just 3 months, Li Wei, who used to be the proud daughter of the Qiren family in Witherbone City, had turned into a deranged woman who spouted nonsense all day long. As the proud daughter of the Qiren family, she should not have been able to escape after her clan was annihilated. However, as many people knew that Li Wei and Han Shu were close friends, no one dared to touch a single hair on Li Wei's head even though her brothers and sisters had died in front of her. Everyone who had met Han Shu sternly warned their family clansmen not to have any designs on Li Wei. They were truly afraid that Han Shu would retaliate against them for Li Wei's vengeance. They knew that they were not over-gods. If Han Shu wanted to kill them, it would be as easy as flipping his palm. Moreover, no one would avenge them. "Sigh, it's been hard on you." Degasi could not help but let out a soft sigh when he saw the deranged Li Wei. A figure approached like a ghost and quietly landed in the dilapidated shrine. He looked at Li Wei's current state and let out a deep sigh. "In this matter, Li Wei is the one I've let down the most." Degasi was startled. He stood up with a vigilant expression and subconsciously shielded Li Wei behind him. But when he saw who it was, his expression relaxed and he put on a bitter smile. "Why are you here?" Han Shu could still remember the fluctuations of Degasi's soul. Given his current cultivation realm, it would be a piece of cake for him to search for Degasi's soul within a certain range. Han Shu, who had come to Witherbone City to start a massacre, suddenly remembered Degasi and Li Wei. After hesitating for a moment, he decided to find them. Han Shu's heart ached when he saw Li Wei's state. Although the Qiren family and Sha Tio had been heartless to the Han family, Li Wei was innocent. She had done everything she could for the Han family. Although her efforts were futile, Han Shu would never forget her kindness. "How is she?" Han Shu let out a soft sigh and asked Degasi. "After going through so much, she had a mental breakdown. Li Wei is the closest person to me in the Qiren family. I really don't want to see her like this." Degasi sighed and said, "After I came to the Qiren family, I learned that the previous owner of the Qiren family had died long ago. No one in the Qiren family thought highly of me. I don't care if they live or die. Only little Li Wei, perhaps because of my relationship with you, treats me well. Brian, can you think of a solution? I can erase that part of her memory and make her forget everything about the Qiren family. Only then can she start anew." Han Shu thought for a moment and helplessly said, "I don't have any other way but to give her a fresh start." "That's fine. As long as she can be happy, it will be fine. Forgetting about the Qiren family is actually a good thing for her." Degasi nodded and praised Han Shu's suggestion. Han Shu placed his hand on the back of Li Wei's head and sent his consciousness into it. He gently wrapped around Li Wei's soul and began to wander through the wisps of faint light that were hard to see with the naked eye. He searched for all the memories related to the Qiren family, and used his consciousness to erase them. If even Sha Tio, a cultivator of the energy of death, could extract memories from the souls of others, it would be even easier for Han Shu, who had reached the Skybreak realm in demonic arts. His consciousness was more profound than any energy that could pry into one's soul. Erasing Li Wei's memories would not leave any residual effects. A few minutes later, Han Shu let out a soft sigh and withdrew his hand. He looked at Li Wei, who had fallen into a deep sleep, and said to Degasi, "When she wakes up, she will completely forget everything about the Qiren family. Take her to Ethereal City in the Space Dominion and go to the Celestial Pro Pharmacy. Don't stay here. Degasi nodded and replied, I have been planning to take her away from here. Ethereal City is indeed a good place to be. I'm sorry. Everything that has happened to her is because of me. She is the only person in the Kiran family that I have let down, said Hansho with a heavy heart. He looked at Degasi and sighed. Degasi patted Hansho's shoulder and carried Li Wei in his arms. He said, It's all in the past. Don't blame yourself. I know what happened. Sha Tio and those people have gone too far. I can't stand watching them die. Hansho felt a little better after hearing Degasi's words. After thinking for a moment, he asked, Tell me about what happened, especially about those who participated in the attack on the Han family. Degasi stared blankly for a moment. Suddenly, his face jolted as though he recalled something. He cried out in surprise, Brian, you didn't come back to look for us? You came back to kill Hill, didn't you? Hansho did not hide anything from Degasi. He nodded and admitted, That's right. Hill is the main culprit. Of course I won't let him get away with it. But Hill is the city lord of Witherbone City. His divine soul is imprinted by the Overgod of Death. You will incur the wrath of the Overgod of Death. This. Degasi started to panic and tried to dissuade Hansho from giving up. I know. Don't worry, I'll be fine, replied Hansho. Hansho was rather touched. He suddenly felt that his friends from Profound Continent were truly kind and unreserved in their concern for him. Degasi forced a smile and shook his head when he saw that he couldn't persuade Hansho. He sighed and said, Back then, when I first met you in the underground world of the Dark Forest on Profound Continent, you were just a puny necromancer. Who would have thought that after a few hundred years, you would rise to prominence on Elysium? Now you even dare to provoke an overgod. Life is truly unpredictable. After hearing Degasi's words, Hansho couldn't help but recall the time he spent with Degasi in the underground world. Back then, Hansho was indeed just a puny necromancer. Back then, Hansho didn't stand a chance against Degasi at all. Hansho did not expect that in just a few hundred years, Degasi would rise to power on Elysium and possess such remarkable abilities. All right, I won't try to dissuade you. Other than Sha Tio and Hill, there are also... Degasi did not finish his sentence. He reported the names of all the participants he knew. Bring Li Wei to the Space Dominion. Witherbone City will be in chaos for a while, said Hansho. His eyes were ice cold. He was ready to start a massacre. Be careful, Degasi reminded Hansho when he saw that Hansho was about to leave. Hansho didn't reply. His figure blurred and disappeared without a trace from Degasi's sight. He left no trace behind, even faster than the power of space tearing. **** Witherbone City. In the City Lord's mansion, Hill had summoned the patriarchs of the major family clans to discuss who would be the chief of the third core of the Kiran family after the extermination of the House of Kiran. Suddenly, a chilling and sinister energy shrouded the entire mansion. The patriarchs of the major family clans who were in the middle of a discussion jolted to their feet. When they felt that familiar power, they understood one thing: the god of slaughter had returned. Chapter 904. Hill and the patriarchs of the major family clans stood up abruptly and looked at Hansho in panic. A chilly wind blew into the hall and tore apart a thin, crystalline barrier. A few energy towers at the side of the hall suddenly exploded. Energy crystals that looked like icy jade scattered all over the floor. In an instant, all the defensive forces in the hall collapsed. A sinister and ruthless energy replaced all the elemental energies and filled every corner of the hall. The patriarchs of the major family clans of Witherbone City felt a chill in their hearts. They couldn't muster any elemental energy to defend or attack effectively. With a calm expression, Hansho walked over step by step, as if he was taking a leisurely stroll in his own courtyard. You It's you? Hill's heart sank. His expression slightly changed. He said in a somewhat hurried voice, "Didn't you leave Witherbone City? Why did you come back?" Han Sho had destroyed all the defensive forces as soon as he appeared. It was obvious that he didn't come with good intentions. Hill knew that his strength was far inferior to Han Sho's. He didn't have the confidence to face Han Sho. Good. Everyone is here. It saves me the trouble of making a few trips." Looking around, Han Sho discovered that all the enemies of the House of Han that Degassi had mentioned were gathered together. Not a single one was missing. "Brian, what are you trying to do? Isn't it over? What else do you want?" Hill's eyes flickered. He felt that it would be difficult for him to get away with it. "How can it be over if you are still alive?" Han Sho couldn't help but laugh. When Hill's expression suddenly changed, Han Sho had already calmly launched an attack. Gusts of chilly wind blew over. The celestial demon flame shuttle, which had been refined, whizzed out. It was covered in ghostly flames and hit Hill's chest. Han Sho condensed his consciousness. Hundreds of demon generals flew out and surrounded the patriarchs of the major family clans. The demon generals howled and wailed as they bore into the bodies of the patriarchs and started gnawing at their flesh, bones, and brains. These demon generals that flew out from the cauldron of myriad demon were refined from the divine souls of mid-gods or high gods. 50 to 60 of them entered a person's body at the same time and immediately devoured the person's blood essence, brain, and bone marrow. The person was instantly subdued. A single demon general might not be able to do much to these patriarchs, but when dozens of demon generals, some of which were refined from high god divine souls, attacked at the same time, the patriarchs of the Witherbone City were no match for them. In just a few moments, the demon generals had devoured the flesh, brains, and bone marrow of the patriarchs of the Witherbone City. All that was left of the patriarchs of the Witherbone City was their shriveled and smelly skin. They lay lifelessly on the ground. Demon generals possessed the ability to evolve. The more flesh, brains, and marrow they devoured, the faster their strength would increase. The most powerful spirit demons could even be refined into outer body incarnations when they evolved to a certain level, possessing some of the divine abilities of the main body. Other than flesh, blood, brain, and bone marrow, the soul was the true source of nourishment for demon generals. However, as these souls could be used to refine new demon generals, the cauldron of myriad demon controlled them and did not allow them to devour the souls of high gods. Under the cauldron of myriad demons' control, a few dusky shadows returned to Han Sho's body and the demon generals flew back. The only person left in the meeting hall was Hill, who was howling in agony under the flames of the celestial demon flame shuttle. The newly refined celestial demon flame shuttle was incredibly powerful. In Han Sho's hands, it was even more elusive. Hill's skin and flesh were burning under the greenish ghostly flames. Even his divine soul could not escape the refinement of the ghostly flames. Wisps of green flames appeared in his pupils. While Hill was howling in agony, Han Sho suddenly made his move. His 5 fingers pierced straight into Hill's skull. The hard skull was like the softest piece of tofu under Han Sho's 5 fingers. There was not the slightest bit of resistance. Hill's 5 fingers sank deep into Hill's brain. 5 exquisite energies wrapped around Hill's soul that was pulsating in the ghostly flames. Not only could Hill's soul not break free, but it also lost the ability to transmit messages. Strands of consciousness flew into Hill's soul through his fingers. Han Sho accurately located a mark in a corner of Hill's soul. The mark was emitting a dense aura of death. It was incompatible with Hill's soul, but it was also releasing strands of weak energy that stimulated Hill's soul. Han Sho immediately knew that it was an overgod mark left in Hill's soul by the overgod of death. After carefully sensing it, he sensed a desolate, powerful, and ancient aura from the overgod mark. He knew very well what the overgod's imprint did in Hill's divine soul. He also knew that the overgod's imprint would immediately be notified of Hill's death, and everything that happened here would be transmitted to the overgod of the Death Dominion. After carefully avoiding the overgod mark, Han Shuo's strands of consciousness drilled into Hill's soul. Just like how he did with Li Wei, he erased Hill's memories, turning Hill's divine soul into a pure soul devoid of consciousness. Hill's soul then flew out of Han Shuo's body with Hill's soul and was stored in a special container. Having cultivated demonic arts to the level of Han Shuo, his understanding of the soul far surpassed that of the gods of life, death, and destiny on Elysium. Han Shuo's marvelous consciousness allowed him to do whatever he wanted to a soul. This was a power that not even an overgod could achieve. In order to avoid incurring the wrath of the overgod of death, Han Shuo thought of a way to erase all of Hill's self-awareness. This way, while Hill's soul would still exist, all of his memories as Hill would be gone. From another perspective, Hill would be dead. Without his own consciousness, Hill could not report his experience to the Death Overgod through the Overgod's imprint. Because his soul was still there, the Death Overgod would think that Hill was still alive and would not think that his soul had actually undergone a tremendous change. This way, the Death Overgod would not know about it immediately. Of course, Han Shuo knew that there was no way to hide the truth. It was only a matter of time before news of Hill's death spread. By the time the truth was revealed, the city lords of other cities in the Death Dominion would naturally report to the Overgod of Death. But to Han Shuo, this period of time was more than enough. He could head to the Darkness Dominion and take care of the enemies of the Han family such as Wallace, Larixon, and Hafs. By then, even if the overgods of darkness and death learned of the truth, Han Shuo would be able to retreat. Looking at Hill's divine soul that was stored in a special container, Han Shuo suddenly thought of a way to improve the strength of his family members in the shortest amount of time. Han Shuo could erase a high god's self-awareness, erase all his experiences that had nothing to do with the cultivation of energy, and leave only the purest divine soul without self-awareness. Then, he would let the members of the Han family, Emily, and the others fuse with the divine soul without self-awareness. That way, they would be able to gain the understanding and perception of energy that a high god would have. Divine energy was a process of accumulating over a long period of time. It could be rapidly increased through the power of faith in divine essences and the devouring method used by god hunters. However, one's realm was the biggest obstacle that hindered one's progress. If one's realm was not up to par, no matter how much divine energy one accumulated, one would not be able to break through the shackles of one's current realm. But if one's realm was up to par, as long as one's divine energy could keep up with one's divine energy, it would only be a matter of course for one to make a breakthrough. By relying on his mastery of the energy of the soul, Han Shuo was fully capable of erasing the irrelevant memories of a high god's divine soul and destroying that person's self-awareness, leaving behind only a pure divine soul with a comprehension of energy. The members of the Han family could fuse with such a divine soul and gain the understanding and perception of energy in a single step. After a series of thoughts flashed through Han Shuo's mind, he suddenly realized that this was definitely the fastest way to greatly improve the strength of the Han family. After pondering for a moment, Han Shuo was certain that this idea was absolutely feasible. He was so happy that he wanted to raise his head to the sky and let out a long roar. Only someone who cultivated in demonic arts, and had such a profound mastery of the energy of the soul could do such a heaven-defying thing. With this method, Han Shuo could see the scene of all the members of the Han family becoming high gods. All the patriarchs of the major family clans in Witherbone City were killed before him. City Lord Hill's soul was erased, and he became a living specimen in Han Shuo's container without any memories. Han Shuo did not stay in the City Lord's mansion for too long. After killing all the people, he calmly left and disappeared without a trace. After leaving Witherbone City, Han Shuo picked up his speed and headed towards the Darkness Dominion. 7 days later, Han Shuo arrived at the largest city in the Darkness Dominion, the City of Gorging Clouds. Han Shuo's target this time was Larixon of the House of Broadhurst. Larixon of the House of Broadhurst had once ambushed him in Hefford. He possessed late-stage high god strength and cultivated in the Edict of Destruction. Because of what happened to his son, Han Shuo knew that Lerickson would not spare him, or the Han family. What happened to the Han family had proven this point. To prevent future troubles, Han Shuo had to get rid of Lerickson. Originally, Han Shuo thought that with his strength, killing Lerickson at the House of Broadhurst should be a piece of cake. But when Han Shuo got close to the House of Broadhurst, he realized that it might not be as easy as it was in Witherbone City. The defensive boundary of the House of Broadhurst was incomparably complex. Endless darkness shrouded the House of Broadhurst. Regardless of whether it was day or night, the dense element of darkness would never disperse. With just one glance, Han Shuo knew that the wall of darkness of the House of Broadhurst was not something that a high god could deploy. He could faintly sense an enormous amount of darkness aura from the House of Broadhurst. The rumors are true. City Lord Yaris of the City of Gorging Clouds has entered the Overgod realm, mumbled Han Shuo as he gazed at the House of Broadhurst that was shrouded in darkness. Chapter 905. Of all the cities in the Darkness Dominion, the City of Gorging Clouds was without a doubt the most powerful city in the Darkness Dominion. There were countless high gods in the city. Be it Hoff's Hushvale's city or Wallace's City of Shadows, they were far inferior to the City of Gorging Clouds. The overall strength of the House of Saint might not even be as great as any of the major family clans in the City of Gorging Clouds, much less the House of Broadhurst. All along, there had been rumors that Yaris, the city lord of the City of Gorging Clouds, had surpassed High God Realm. However, rumors were just rumors. As Yaris had always kept a low profile and had delegated many of the city's affairs to his trusted aides, as well as those who had seen him could not tell the difference between an overgod and a high god, the rumors were never verified. However, when Han Shuo stood in front of the Broadhurst residence, and sensed the boundless darkness shrouding the residence, he immediately realized that Yaris had indeed reached the realm of Overgod. The endless dark elements hovering above the Broadhurst residence were all attracted by Yaris. Using the energy towers in every corner of the Broadhurst residence, Yaris could gather a large amount of dark elements for his own use. The gods cultivating in the energy of darkness in the Broadhurst residence could more or less benefit from it. Han Shuo, who was about to attack Lerickson immediately, stopped in front of the door and bunched his brows when he sensed the powerful aura of darkness surrounding the residence. If the House of Broadhurst didn't have an overgod like Yaris, Han Shuo would have been able to sneak into the residence and kill Lerickson without alerting anyone. However, Yaris' strength had exceeded Han Shuo's expectations. It was nearly impossible for Han Shuo to sneak into the residence undetected. If Han Shuo were to be discovered, he would be attacked by Yaris. Of course, Han Shuo wasn't afraid of Yaris, but if Yaris were to attack, it would disrupt Han Shuo's plan. With an overgod and the high gods of the Broadhurst family present, Yaris would have a very slim chance of killing Lerickson under Yaris' protection. Not only that, the news of Han Shuo's return to the Darkness Dominion would also be exposed. Wallace and Hoffs might hide for a while after learning that Han Shuo had returned. This would bring many uncertainties to Han Shuo's operation. After hesitating for a moment, Han Shuo decided not to barge into the residence of Broadhurst. He would wait until Lerickson had left. Although Yaris was the city lord of the City of Gorging Clouds, he wholeheartedly focused on his cultivation. Most of the city's affairs were handled by his family members. As Yaris' younger brother, Lerickson was naturally burdened with mundane affairs. It was impossible for him to stay in the Broadhurst residence for too long. Han Shuo retreated to the City of Gorging Clouds and inquired about Lerickson's whereabouts. He learned that Lerickson was indeed in the City of Gorging Clouds and was staying with the House of Broadhurst. After receiving accurate information, Han Shuo returned to the residence of Broadhurst and patiently waited for Lerickson to show up. 3 days later, at dusk, Lerickson and a few divine guards of the House of Broadhurst finally left the residence of Gorging Clouds. They seemed to be on a mission and headed straight for the city gate. Han Sho thought to himself, even the heavens are helping me. He quietly followed behind Larrickson. Just as he expected, Larrickson and the experts from the House of Broadhurst had left the city of Gorging Clouds and were heading towards one of their strongholds. Halfway through the journey, Larrickson suddenly felt his heart palpitate. Before he could react, Han Sho had appeared from the darkness. "Long time no see, Larrickson." It's good to see you again." Han Sho's voice reverberated in the air. Suddenly, a shadowy figure materialized in the air and appeared before Larrickson. "It's you?" Larrickson cried out in surprise. Before his voice faded, his space ring flashed and the space in front of him was torn apart. Without a word, Larrickson dived into the torn space. Han Sho did not expect that Larrickson would be so cowardly that he would tear apart space and escape without even finishing his sentence. This was completely out of Han Sho's expectation. Han Sho's face jolted. He knew that it was too late to stop Larrickson. He let out a cold groan and shot into the torn space and Larrickson's space ring like a bolt of lightning. Dazzling light filled his surroundings. After a moment of dizziness, Han Sho found himself in an area covered by layers upon layers of boundaries. Larrickson, Hafs, Wallace, and Ralph were all standing beside him with sneers on their faces. Larrickson, Hafs, Wallace, and Ralph were among them. Han Sho turned his consciousness and raised his head to look at the boundless aura of darkness above him. He immediately realized that he had fallen into a trap meticulously laid out by his enemies. "Brian, welcome to the Broadhurst residence of the city of Gorging Clouds. We have been waiting for you for a long time," said Yaris in a faint smile. Yaris wore a faint smile as he looked at Han Sho and said in a soft voice. His body was shrouded in the aura of darkness. As the city lord of the city of Gorging Clouds, the most powerful city in the Darkness Dominion, Yaris naturally possessed the bearing of someone who held a high position. Coupled with his power as an overgod, he possessed an indescribably unique bearing. Han Sho was in an area surrounded by layers of boundaries. There were a dozen high gods outside the boundaries. Among them, 5 were late-stage high gods like Hafs and Wallace. The rest were mid-stage high gods. Most of them cultivated in the energy of darkness. They wore cold smiles on their faces as they looked at Han Sho as though he was a turtle in a jar. "What a trick! To think that you would use such a trick to lure me in!" Han Sho took a deep breath and looked at the boastful Yaris. He said, "Such a scheme and such means are truly extraordinary. Yaris, you are indeed the city lord of the city of Gorging Clouds. No wonder characters like Hafs and Wallace are no match for you. The strength of an entire city can't even compare to a family clan of yours." "Shut up!" shouted Hafs coldly. He looked at Han Sho and said in a deep voice, "How dare you be so stubborn even in the face of death? With City Lord Yaris here today, no matter how powerful he is, he will not be able to walk out of here alive. Brian, I didn't want to make an enemy out of you. But you have been forcing my hand," sighed Wallace helplessly at Han Sho. Han Sho couldn't help but laugh. He turned his gaze to Wallace and said, "I forced you? Ha, what a joke! Ever since I came to the City of Shadows, I have saved Carmelita twice and helped your House of Saint many times. Ever since the Han family established themselves in the City of Shadows, I knew that you wouldn't allow the Han family to continue developing. I was even prepared to leave the City of Shadows with the Han family. But you, Hafs and Larrickson, have the nerve to say that I am forcing you? How amusing! The City of Shadows will forever belong to the House of Saint. As the Patriarch of the House of Saint, I have to exterminate anyone who can threaten the House of Saint." Wallace was rendered speechless by Han Sho's words. "I have given you face, but you don't want it." Han Sho put on a cold smile and shook his head. He knew that he had nothing to say to Wallace. "Larrickson, Wallace, Hafs, Ralph. Very good, very good. Everyone is here." Han Sho's gaze swept across them one by one and finally landed on Yaris, the city lord of the city of Gorging Clouds. He smilingly asked, You have meticulously planned all this. Why haven't you made your move? Yaris put on a carefree smile and said to Han Shu in an incomparably sincere manner. Brian, I have long heard of your great name. It seems that you live up to your reputation. But I, Yaris, am willing to allow your Han family to settle in the city of Gorging Clouds. As long as you are willing to let go of your hatred towards Larixon, I will welcome your Han family on behalf of the entire city of Gorging Clouds. I can assure you that what happened to Wallace will never happen again. Yaris spoke with great sincerity. He didn't seem to be joking, which was completely out of Han Shaw's expectations. Elder brother, how can you do that? He killed your nephew and many experts of your house of Broadhurst. How can you allow him to enter the city of Gorging Clouds? Before Han Shaw could say anything, Larixon was the first to panic. He roared at Yaris in panic. Shut up! Shouted Yaris. Larixon, who had always been arrogant in the Darkness Dominion, immediately shut his mouth. It appeared that Yaris had been in the house of Broadhurst for a long time, that even Larixon feared him. You and Field were the ones who started this. You provoked him first. It is only natural that you suffer a little, said Yaris with a frown. Yaris frowned and scolded Larixon. Compared to an over-god, your son's life can be ignored. You have plenty of energy anyway. Just give birth to a few more. Big elder brother. Larixon was stunned, and he wanted to say something. Yaris' face turned cold. He waved his hand and said, That's enough. I know what to do. Cut the crap. Larixon, who was full of complaints, dared not utter a word after being reprimanded by Yaris. He lowered his head and glared at Han Shu with hatred in his eyes. Wallace and Hafs were astonished. Yaris clearly did not discuss this with them. They looked at Yaris with sparkling eyes, as though they wanted an explanation from Yaris. Brian, as long as you are willing to come to my city of Gorging Clouds, I will write off all our grudges. Not only that, I will provide you with a manor, manpower, and resources that are much better than what you had in the City of Shadows. Anything that your celestial pearl needs, I will provide. What do you think? Said Yaris as he looked at Han Shu expectantly. Han Shu was secretly impressed by Yaris' way of doing things. However, he still shook his head resolutely and said smilingly, Thank you for your kindness. After what happened in the City of Shadows, my Han family will never submit to anyone again. Chapter 906. Back when Han Shu left the City of Shadows, he had made up his mind that he would never bow down to anyone again. Although Yaris was much more magnanimous than Wallace, Han Shu was not willing to bet his Han family on the city of Gorging Clouds. Moreover, Han Shu was not impressed by Yaris' strength. How could Han Shu be willing to submit to Yaris' city of Gorging Clouds? Yaris shook his head and sighed in disappointment when he heard Han Shu's refusal. However, Larixon, Hafs, and Wallace heaved a sigh of relief. It was as though a heavy burden had been lifted from their hearts. He really doesn't know what's good for him. Elder brother, there's no need to waste your breath on him. He deserves to die. Larixon laughed. Yaris looked at Han Shu regretfully and helplessly said, I was sincere in inviting you to join the city of Gorging Clouds. But since you have refused, I have no choice but to kill you right here and now. My family will not allow an expert like you to live. My apologies. Don't worry about it. Show me what you have got. Let's see if you can keep me here today, said Han Shu in a heroic manner. He did not seem to be worried at all. Layers upon layers of boundaries had isolated all elemental energies. Even space itself seemed to be frozen solid. Even an expert who cultivated in the Edict of Space and possessed a space scroll would not be able to unleash it. It appeared that Yaris and the others had come up with a foolproof plan to block off all avenues of escape for Han Shu. Brian, you can't escape. The boundaries here can stop anyone from leaving. Unless you can break through the 120 layers, You can only passively receive our attacks," said Wallace mockingly as he looked coldly at Han Shu. "Wallace, you haven't told Carmelita and Andre that you and Ralph have come to the City of Gorging Clouds, have you? Haha, what do you think they will think if they know that you are going to do this to me?" Han Shu put on a relaxed smile. Wallace's expression slightly changed when he heard Han Shu mention Carmelita and Andre. It appeared that Han Shu had touched a sore spot. "I will take care of the affairs of the House of Saint. You don't have to worry about it." "Humph. Carmelita and Andre are short-sighted and have been bewitched by your flowery words. However, it is only a matter of time before they realize all that I have done for the House of Saint," Wallace said with a sullen face. Rather than reprimanding Han Shu, those words were more like comforting himself. Han Shu nodded and did not say anything else. He had brought up Carmelita and Andre not because he hoped that Wallace would let him go, but because he wanted to confirm with Wallace that Carmelita and Andre knew nothing about the matter. This way, at least, Han Shu would not be too disappointed. Emily and Phoebe had previously told him that they had not received any response after sending out their distress letters. The hearts of men were sinister, and he was not sure if Andre and Carmelita were involved in this matter. Now that Wallace had denied it himself, Han Shu knew that the two of them were indeed unaware. As for Eobashi and Erebus, as they were sent away, Han Shu was certain that they knew nothing about what happened in Fort Lossberg. "Now that things have come to this, there is no need for me to hold back," Han Shu said. Yaris knew that there was no point in trying to persuade Han Shu any further. He softly instructed, "Darkwater, Darkstone, please come over here." Two dark figures suddenly appeared beside Yaris. They were dressed in black and had gloomy faces. They looked exactly the same and cultivated in the energy of darkness. Although they were both late-stage high gods, the closer they stood to one another, the stronger the energy of darkness on their bodies became. It was a very peculiar phenomenon. Darkwater and Darkstone were twin brothers. They were the city lords of Blackwater City and Blackrock City respectively. The twins were second only to Yaris in fame in the City of Shadows. It was said that the god of darkness had placed an identical brand in their divine souls. When the two joined forces, they could unleash extraordinary power. The twins were telepathically connected. They cultivated in the energy of darkness, and were both late-stage high gods. Furthermore, they were imbued with the same brand by the god of darkness. It was only because they were identical that their combined strength would multiply. Han Shu slightly bunched his brows when he saw Darkwater and Darkstone. His face turned a little grave. Han Shu, of course, knew that the two had been hiding in the dark. However, as the two were in two different directions, Han Shu did not pay too much attention to them as they were just two high gods. However, when the two suddenly dashed out from the darkness and closed the distance between them, Han Shu suddenly discovered that the divine energy in their bodies had increased by an unbelievable amount. The aura of darkness on their bodies was rapidly converging. When the two stood beside Yaris, Han Shu discovered that the aura of darkness and divine energy in their bodies had far surpassed that of Hafs and Wallace. Although it was not as dense as Yaris' overgod realm, it was clearly beyond the realm of high gods. Yaris alone was already rather difficult to deal with. Now that the two city lords had joined the fray, and there were more than 100 layers of boundaries, Han Shu immediately realized that it would be much more difficult to break through the layers of boundaries. "Brian, I will ask you one more time. Do you really want to be my enemy?" The smile on Yaris' face slowly faded. His expression became unprecedentedly grave. He had revealed all his trump cards in the hope that Han Shu would be able to see the situation clearly. Han Shu laughed involuntarily and said to Yaris, "Do you really think you can trap me with the addition of the two of them?" Yaris shook his head and replied, "Not trap you, but kill you. Haha, let's see how you plan to kill me." Han Shu laughed heartily. He raised his head to look at the dark aura that was pressing down on him, and said, Do you really think that my strength will decrease just because you have isolated all elemental energies in this area? Ha, come, let me see what you have up your sleeves. The elements in this space were isolated, and there was only an endless amount of dark energy in all directions, like a black mountain pressing down on them. Any other god cultivating in the elemental energy would have their strength greatly reduced in this isolated area. They would have to rely on the divine energy in their bodies to resist. Without the replenishment of elemental energy, every ounce of divine energy that was consumed would be depleted. Once the divine energy in one's body was depleted, even the strongest expert would become extremely weak. Then, they would be at the mercy of others and become meat on a chopping board. Good, he is indeed a formidable character. But it is a pity that he will die here today, Yaris praised. He turned to Darkwater, Darkstone, Hafs, and Wallace and said, I will deploy the black hole vortex. All you need to do is pour your darkness divine energy into the vortex from the sky, and you will be able to continuously increase the power of the black hole vortex. When the black hole vortex comes crashing down, all the dark energy will mince everything in its path in the most frenzied manner. He will die without a doubt. Darkwater, Darkstone, Wallace, Hafs, and a few other experts cultivating in the energy of darkness nodded in understanding. They knew how powerful Yaris was and how terrifying his ultimate skill, the black hole vortex, was. Yaris said no more. He suddenly closed his eyes and sat on the spot. Wisps of gloomy aura flew out from his body and fell into the endless darkness shrouding the boundary. As soon as the wisps of dark energy were injected into the absolute darkness above Han Shuo's head, the aura of darkness seemed to be pushed by many forces and formed a vortex that slowly rotated. At the same time, Darkwater, Darkstone, Wallace, and Hafs, who had long been prepared, did not stand idle. Wisps of dark energy flew out from their bodies and landed on the area above Han Shuo. They fell into the vortex that had just started rotating. After the energy of darkness flew out from Darkwater and Darkstone's bodies, they strangely twisted together like hemp ropes. The two's energies became several times more powerful than Hafs and Wallace's energies alone. They were 10 times more powerful than the combined energies of Hafs and Wallace. Wisps of dark energy were injected into the vortex above Han Shuo's head. The originally slow rotation of the vortex grew faster and faster. It was as though the void above Han Shuo's head had been torn into an endless black hole. Terrifying energy kept accumulating as though it was going to devour the entire world. Yaris himself was an overgod. Darkwater and Darkstone were extremely powerful when they joined forces. In addition to Hafs, Wallace, and a few other powerful high gods, their combined strength was beyond Han Shuo's expectations. They were much stronger than when Salus, Wasis, and Han Shuo fought. They had gathered all their energies together, intending to grind Han Shuo into pieces with a single strike. The energy in the vortex of darkness that was accumulating energy grew more and more terrifying. Han Shuo's heart grew heavier and heavier. Han Shuo really couldn't think of a way to deal with this frightening force. The 17 flying swords had long flown out of his body and were bombarding the 100+ layers of boundaries that bound the space. However, the 100+ layers of boundaries were extremely tough. The 17 flying swords simply couldn't destroy them all at once. Fight! In that split second, Han Shuo made up his mind. He finally decided to use all of his and Cauldron Spirit's power. The 17 flying swords no longer bombarded the layers of boundaries. Han Shuo withdrew them and sat cross-legged on the ground. The demonic infant, the foundation of demonic arts cultivation, slowly flew out from his body. Thousands of strands of his consciousness transformed into rays of dark light and surged into the demonic infant, bestowing all of Han Shuo's essence, energy, and soul to the demonic infant. The demonic infant slowly flew out from the top of Han Shuo's head. A phantom identical to Han Shuo drifted erratically and grew longer and longer. At the same time, hundreds and thousands of demon generals whizzed out of the cauldron of myriad demon and disappeared into the demonic infant. The demonic infant, which was originally the size of an infant, grew larger and larger after receiving the energy of hundreds and thousands of demon generals. In no time at all, the demonic infant had become a giant that hovered dozens of meters in the air. The terrifying energy of coldness, ruthlessness, and bloodlust suddenly filled the entire city of gorging clouds. The more than 100 layers of boundaries seemed to be unable to obstruct the demonic infant's destructive energy. Hee! The demonic infant suddenly let out a shrill howl after receiving the energy of all the demon generals. The howl broke through the layers of boundaries. In an instant, many gods of the House of Broadhurst bled from their 7 orifices and died on the spot. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.